Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, AEW's 4-hour Fyter Fest will be reviewed with even more F words than that. Plus, a big NXT debut, and wrestlers go on strike for more money from TV broadcasts, and get it, a history lesson today as well. And joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's the Philo Farnsworth of podcasting. The great Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. Another fun-packed episode. We have a lot of things to talk about, and again, a packed episode. I don't know how we're going to get this all in and finish.
A fun-packed episode? That sounds almost like a candy bar. The little fun size, the fun packs.
Christ on a cracker.
Christ on a cracker, they ought to call it, for the religious crowd out there. You said, why didn't... Somebody needs to market that. Some type of everything's better when it sits on a Ritz. Well, Christ on a cracker now, and have either the Ritz people or the saltine, the Keebler people.
Well, saltines are the best when it comes to the crackers, I would say, right?
Well, I like a good Ritz because everything's better when it sits on a Ritz. Now, if you've got the puny tummy, then you want to go to the classic saltine. But if you want to...
Otherwise, put it on the Ritz.
Peanut butter, a cheese sandwich, whatever. Melts in your mouth. Less salt, or it would seem to be. And they're round instead of square. You don't want to eat a square cracker. It makes you a square guy, doesn't it? Eating square crackers.
I kind of feel like crackers should be squares.
Now, why is that?
Saltines have obviously had a very big influence on me. I kind of feel like they are the perfect cracker and that they represent the best of crackerdom.
You were taught from the time you were a little child when you went to Sunday cracker school.
That's right.
That you should kneel at the altar of the saltine.
All kidding aside, I think I've said this to you before talking about Christ on a cracker, which is referencing something we joked about off air. But when I went to Torino years ago in Italy, I came away with the thought, how come no one has marketed Shrouded Turin beach towels? It just seems like such a natural thing. Lay here, see how you match up. And you can buy the negative or like the actual image of it.
The positive, it's better. Positive is always good. Right? Yes. Positive is good.
I mean, if they're marketing on everything else, like on postcards and all sorts of stuff, why not beach towels? Just seems like a natural thing.
Would what parts of it would come through, because it's only kind of like the vague image in your imagination or faith, as it tends has to take up the rest. So it might be better if you could have your face put on Shroud of Turin beach towel.
I think that's a step too far. That's sacrilege. You're now altering what may or may not be something.
Oh, so wrapping yourself up in a fucking raggedy, sand-covered goddamn blanket depicting the sacred Shroud of Turin while you're fucking on the beach is not
fucking on
sacrilegious,
the beach. But laying on the beach.
What else are you going to put a towel down at the beach?
Catching some rays, catching the sun.
Catching some rays.
You just want to lay, hey, does anyone have a towel? I need to lay on the sand. I don't want to just be on the sand. Oh, look, this is a giant towel. Oh, it happens to be the Shroud of Turin. How interesting. How do I match up? You have an orgy on the beach. Somehow that's where your mind went. Everyone's just fucking on the beach and running around.
One seems to be as sacrilegious as the other. You can put your face on it. You can make the kids Jesus. Here's my little son dipshit, but on the towel he's Jesus. I don't know.
Beach blanket Singo. But
all right.
This is your show.
Yes, let's get back to the good, wholesome programming that I'm known for.
You started it.
No, we got a bird's nest in a dogwood tree. Little birdies, 3 of them. Every morning I'm getting to walk out and watch the morning feeding with the mama bird flying in with the worm from wherever the local worm store for birds is, and they're all beak. I've said this before last year when we had the birds in the garage. That you can see the nest, and the nest is in the dogwood in a crook of the branch of the tree going out sideways. So it's literally only about 12, 13 feet off the ground. And It's covered by the rest of the canopy of the dogwoods. They got a nice little spot there, good little view. And you can walk right up. So if I'm my head is 6-7 feet underneath the nest, and I can look up over the edge and see the little beaks popping up as they go for the worm. And they're almost to the chirping stage. You can't hear them yet, at least not from 10 feet away or whatever it is. But they're just the cutest little furry things. So we're keeping an eye on that over. I haven't given a wildlife update in a while because of all the severe goddamn weather, which, by the way, Brian, now I've figured out how to watch the weather radar on my computer here while I'm talking to you. Because we got storms coming in again today. Probably to the south of us, but it's dark here in the office. I got all of the drapes open, the curtains open, and it's just gloomy outside. It's blacker than a banker's heart. And I'm trying to see my notes and things go. It's a gloomy atmosphere. It's not cheery like it normally is up here in my sunny perch. That's why I'm usually in a good mood and have such a sunny disposition. I got no sun. Got no sunny.
Well, you got the birds in the trees. At least you got that.
I got the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the skies up above. You know what else I got? I got a new toy. Did I tell you about this? Did I tell you about my badass new leaf blower?
No, I thought you were talking about your new diddlator. But what? Tell me about the leaf blower.
No, what are you, some kind of pervert? Why do you talk like that? I have had for quite some time now because, I got the bad shoulder and the bad neck. And potential injuries all over the place. And I can't do the jerking of the cord for the gasoline powered badass leaf blower that they have that the big boys use and just blow the man down. I can't do that. I can't pull the rip cord. Is that what they call it? The starter cord, the rip cord, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's the rip cord.
Well, I ain't gonna be pulling it anyway. I ain't gonna pull any cords, but point being, so I'd gotten a number of years ago a battery operated leaf blower. It was like this, I think it's a 12-volt battery, or I don't know what the fuck volt it was. It's all worn off now anyway. And that thing was like trying to get a chipmunk to blow a leaf off the porch. I mean, just pitiful, just pitiful. So I went in the other day and I said, I need the baddest ass leaf blower that you got that's battery operated, that I can just flip on with the switch. What are you already laughing about the leaf blowing shopping thing here?
You're being a pervert. I need the baddest ass. Whatever you got. Ass that's bad.
The powerful. I needed the power, baby. Give me all your shit's got, Captain. And he gave me this 40-volt big old battery charger, big old battery, big old leaf blower, it came all in one package. 40-volt thing, and not only when it turns on, and it says 120 mph on the nozzle of this thing, the barrel or the blower or whatever, but it not only does when you turn it on, it blows like that, it'll blow you backwards, but it's got a turbo switch on the top of it that cranks it up a notch. And it blows even harder. And at that point, then hail starts falling from the sky and goddamn, everything turns dark. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, I love using this thing. I have blown things around for the last few days. I cleaned out the garage, and it's great for blowing the locusts out of the garage and off the driveway, since there are thousands of millions of them are everywhere. But I encourage everybody to go out and get a 40-volt leaf blower, because it'll improve your life. What volt is your leaf blower, Brian?
Oh, I don't know. I know we have something for whenever the gardeners are not here, but I don't know what kind of volt. I used it past year for snow on the car.
Well, that's your snow blower.
No, I use the leaf blower. I don't have a snow blower.
Oh, you use the leaf blower on the car for the snow, but you also got a snow blower. There's a lot of things getting blown in your house.
You don't have to be a pervert about everything.
What are you talking about? I'm saying you're blowing leaves, you're blowing snow, you're blowing your opportunities at a bigger job after this.
What could be bigger than this?
Well, I'll tell you how big is big, how rough is rough, how tough is tough. I'll tell you what could be bigger than this: the battle of the broke back billionaires. Brian, we haven't been talking about Shitler lately, and a lot of people have been upset about it because I get the emails and the Twitter messages and all that type of thing all the time. Oh, goddamn, please do some more promos on Trump. We need to hear him insulted as only you can. Do more. You were doing promos on Trump, then you quit. And actually, from the people I've not successfully blocked yet in any form of social media, I do get a comment from time to time. You ain't been talking about Trump. And now he's doing all this good stuff. But I'm sorry, we can't pass this up because there has been an element of resignation since the election, since the thing was sworn in. We know we're fucked. It's just a matter of who's fucked when and how. And everything is pretty much coming to pass. But then the breakup happens between the two most evil billionaires in the history of the world. And now they're forced over there in that camp of lunacy to pick sides between which asshole billionaire that would set fire to them in a heartbeat if given the opportunity do they want to support against the other asshole billionaire. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, the memes are out there. WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Alien versus Predator, whatever. Brian, you're a financial expert. Do you think if Elon Musk really did pay $250 million for Donald Trump, doesn't he need to call his credit card company and get the charge refunded?
Well, I don't think they could issue refunds for that kind of purchase that he was certainly gung-ho for when it happened. Before we get into the semantics of this actual feud that took place very quickly, very, very quickly. Heel versus heel programs. Are they tough to book? Does someone have to come out of it as the babyface? How do you see a heel versus heel program featuring the two biggest heels at the current moment? I mean, usually you don't have the two top heels wrestling each other. What do you see heel versus heel here?
Here's the problem. In a heel versus heel situation, a lot of times in wrestling, the heels would each have some heat, whether it was single heel or two tag teams or whatever. And you could put them together once in as Nick Goulas used to call it, the Battle of the Brutes. And they could get crazy and they could get it thrown out or whatever, and then go on about their business. Heel versus heel long-term programs are harder because the longer that it goes on, the more people realize that they didn't really ever like either one of these motherfuckers to begin with. And the original reason that they wanted to see the match was because all these fucking heels, they're going to fucking beat the shit out of each other. They're going to do all the bad things they do to my favorite wrestlers to each other. They all deserve it. And the match would probably draw. But then it needs to be gotten over with quickly, or elsewise people remember, shit, we didn't like either one of these assholes. And that's at the point where you would need to make one, if not a babyface, the sympathetic figure. And how could you make either one of these fucking repugnant cretins a babyface figure to the general public?
Well, that's an interesting question too, because let's look at it the other way. From the side of their supporters, which had been a united front for the most part lately, for them, it's babyface versus babyface. So same question. Does someone have to come out of this to heel? Does babyface versus babyface psychologically hurt your audience because you're splitting who they like? How do you see babyface versus babyface?
Again, there's the problem. Is if you do the match one time and you kind of get out of it, well, they saw it was unique, but if it carries on long term, somebody is eventually going to be either on purpose or by accident more of the favorite, and somebody else is going to get under people's skin. And there, you've got two world-class experts at getting under people's fucking skin. And when they start examining, because face it, there's a large segment of people, the sane, rational people, that knew what the fuck this was going to be to begin with before it happened. That's why, as I mentioned, we don't talk about it now because the tragedy has already happened. The tragedy is the time to be talking about it is when you're trying to warn people, take cover, storm's coming, call a doctor, call a fire department, whatever. When 4 months after it's already taken place, why remind everybody and put them all in a bad mood every day? Yeah, I told you so. We're all fucked. But that's the problem is the more that people might start analyzing either one of these two fucking morally bankrupt assholes to determine which one they agree with, the more they might be inclined to not like one or either or both. So it's just damaging their own shit. It's the richest guy in the world and the fucking most powerful guy in the world arguing with each other on Twitter like teenage schoolgirls. And which side are we supposed to take? The world's richest asshole was given full access to all the information. Apparently, if there's information, he got it. And Trump gave it to him while he was on ketamine, mushrooms, and whatever the fuck, and all of his little stooges. And now that he is mad at Trump and says Trump was Epstein's client, and Trump says he's nuts, we should cancel all his contracts. So whose side would you take, Brian?
Well, again, I don't know if there's any good guys here because I think it's all just about them each not getting what they want and, they're kind of having hissy fits. But we have the actual timeline here. It's kind of intriguing. I guess the thing that really kicked this off, while Elon Musk was running Doge, they promised billions in cuts. I don't think it got to where they had promised. His time was running out. His company had taken a big hit over the first quarter of the year.
And yeah, I think they were starting for we'll cut $1 trillion and then we cut billions of dollars. They didn't cut fucking anything. They fired a bunch of people that were running shit, but they didn't really cut anything important.
And like I said, Tesla took a big hit to the point where Donald Trump basically did a commercial for Tesla on the front lawn of the White House.
Yes, that's what the people juxtaposed the picture of him doing that with the picture of Hitler and the Volkswagen.
I maybe so. I didn't see that.
I saw that on Twitter. They did. Yeah.
But the point is that it had been a very cozy relationship. It seemed like a two-way relationship. Donald Trump's trying to get his bill passed, a big, beautiful bill as he's tagged it, because everything needs a gimmick. And Elon Musk, days after leaving the White House with a ceremony of sorts on live TV, he got a golden key to something. I don't know what it was.
The washroom.
No, but seriously, did you see he got like a key? What was it a key to?
Yes, it's a ceremonial key to
what?
I think to Donald Trump's heart at the time.
Well, days later, Elon tweeted out, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it." So that was a tweet. That was a bit of a surprising thing because even if he thinks that, again, him and Trump, very close. Trump doesn't take too kindly to especially people he knows or has known or he may like, all of a sudden just doing this. And then he had another one, someone who I guess is a right wing or a GOP or some kind of commentator tried to go through what's going on here with the spending, and Elon retweeted that and wrote, "In November next year, we fire all politicians who betrayed the American people." So with these things coming out, naturally, people are like, okay, there may be a Trump-Elon problem on the horizon. The other day when we were recording, that first kind of happened, and I said to you, this may turn into something because neither one of these guys can let something go.
No.
So then I have here from the New York Post a timeline from yesterday as we were recording, June 5th. At noon, Trump was in a meeting with the German chancellor in the Oval Office. And here's a quote from him. "I said, 'Do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup.' But he said, 'No, I don't think so.'" Is he talking about the German chancellor? Why is that?
No, he's talking Elon Musk's black eye. When he did the fucking, He said his son punched him in the face.
Hey, by the way, get that kid a contract. What a right hook. What a right hook. He gave his dad a black eye. He's a little kid.
I think he fell over and fucking ketamined himself and tried to get out of it.
Well, Trump, 7 minutes later in the same meeting with the German chancellor, here's a quote. "I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot. Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore." So then, 12 minutes later on X, or Twitter as we call it, Elon tweeted out, and I gotta click this to show me more. "Whatever. Keep the EV solar incentive cuts in the bill, even though no oil and gas subsidies are touched. Very unfair. But ditch the mountain of disgusting pork in the bill. In the entire history of civilization, there had never been legislation that both big and beautiful. Everyone knows this. Either you get a big and ugly bill or a slim and beautiful bill. Slim and beautiful is the way." And I guess we should say here, again, when you go to what could the motive be?
I guess we should say here, drugs are bad, okay?
Well, the bill that Trump and his side are really pushing and trying to get through, one of the things in there is a cut for electric vehicle incentives, which obviously affects Tesla. That's their entire business. Of course. So
after he's already run half his business off with try to dismantle the United States government, now then the guy that he did it for is saying, well, we'll just get rid of all that shit to help people buy his cars.
And then, and I got to make sure this is actually going in the timeline that it happened.
He might be the only billionaire that might not be benefiting from this goddamn thing, because the rest of them will make a fortune on the tax breaks.
And obviously there's
as long as Aunt Sally can't have her fucking Meals on Wheels, but go ahead.
There are a ton of retweets on his Twitter timeline just all about this issue, not necessarily the Trump issue at the, even though there are a bunch about that too, but about the actual spending, about his concerns or whatever he's trying to put out there about the spending. So then shortly after that, Elon also tweeted out, "Is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle?" And there's a poll here. 5,500,000 plus have voted so far. There's 20 minutes left in the poll. So as we are recording, we may get some.
You think Elon's opinion will win? He owns the fucking polling place, doesn't he?
In this case, I guess that is true. He does own the polling place.
Listen here. Here's the goddamn deal. Number one, you have got this. Obviously, have you seen the clips of him when he's out of his mind, Elon Musk, when he's traveling to the beat of his different drummer in his fucking head? And he's obviously a fucking weirdo. And he's also somehow Dr. Evil in real life, where he's accumulated fucking $500 trillion. And he was given full access to everything and everybody and all of our shit. And he owns the platform that he helped sway various elections on, that he's conducting the poll on. And meanwhile, so I can understand him being on it. But meanwhile, this other cretin that he's feuding with is the president of the United States, and he's having a goddamn whiny bitch fit on Twitter with another fucking whiny fucking billionaire. We are the laughing stock of the world. But continue to go ahead and read how they're making people laugh at us.
It's not as easy to figure out the exact timeline because there's so much stuff, and it looks like some may have been deleted, but it's also important to note Elon retweeted a Donald Trump tweet from December where he nominated Jared Isaacman, an accomplished business leader, philanthropist, pilot, and astronaut, as the administrator of NASA. And I think just days ago he withdrew the nomination, which again was, I think, something Elon Musk thought was something against him. He's retweeting things. What Elon Musk is doing is genuinely heroic.
And by the way, Elon Musk also has a major part to play now at his companies in our national space program. They let this fucking idiot be integral in some respects to the national space program.
Well, Elon Musk also tweeted out, not even those in Congress who had the vote on the big, ugly spending bill had time to read it. And then Trump at 2:37 went on Truth Social, his social media site.
Yeah, he owns that one.
Elon was wearing thin. That's a quote. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy. That's all in caps. That was followed up by, the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. So let's stop there.
Well, in that case, why did he do it?
Now, this is again a very interesting situation. This is like almost like Howard Hughes or something. You have someone who has government contracts. Someone who, it's not just about the EV incentive for the taxpayers. This is about his business, whether it's SpaceX or whatever, gets government money that funds it to a large degree, if not the majority of the funding they get. So that creates an interesting dynamic here because Trump, technically you don't have to work with him. I don't know who, whatever they do, I don't know who else does it. But going back to this, Elon Musk retweeted Trump's comment about how he was wearing thin and how he asked him to leave and wrote, such an obvious lie. So sad. And then Elon, I'm trying to see.
It's like Trump and Bizarro Trump facing off with each other.
And then I'm trying to find the one here, unless it's out of order, about him decommissioning one of his programs. Trump threatening to screw with the EV thing. And then at 3:10 p.m., Elon Musk went on X and wrote, time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. And then he followed up that tweet with another one. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. So let's stop there for a second because he went nuclear. Wow. What are your thoughts on this? Let's stop here.
What are your thoughts? Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you'd like to see? Again, it's not a surprise. There's more pictures. Somebody posted this, a collage, and made the point. There's more pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein than there is of Trump with his children. So it's not why would it be a surprise to anybody? That's, again, it's just an example of the embarrassment when you let, it used to be, when the trailer trash gets some money. Now it's literally when the trailer trash becomes billionaires. This is the kind of shit you get. It's embarrassing as a nation that people around the world think that these two fucking gelatinous blobs of goo were running our government and represent us. And that Musk for a while was apparently telling Donald what, because he's so easily swayed until he gets insulted. And then he fucking lashes out like Blair on fucking different strokes or whatever the fuck it was.
I don't think that's Blair was Facts of Life, right?
Blair on the Facts of Life. Well, if she got some different strokes, if Trump was around.
It was Conrad Bain on different strokes lashing out.
Well,
let's go back.
Anyway,
let's go back. We have more.
Back to, go back to yours and then I'll come back to mine.
At 4:06 p.m., Trump again went on Truth Social. I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. It's a record cut in expenses, $1.6 trillion, and the biggest tax cut ever given.
Yeah, so a bigger cut in revenue.
If this bill doesn't pass, there will be a 68% tax increase and things far worse than that. I didn't create this mess. I'm just here to fix it. This puts our country on a path of greatness. Make America great again. To which Elon responded 3 minutes later, referring to earlier tweets. In light of the president's statement about canceling my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. Now, let me stop there. Do you know anything? I don't know anything about the Dragon spacecraft. Do you?
Well, I can't quote you chapter and verse, but the overall gist of it is that the government has allowed Elon Musk to get so involved in our space program with his space program because he was footing the bill for so much shit that I believe he can now say, well, I'm just going to take my spaceship and go home and take it out of the hangar or wherever they keep their spaceships. So, yes, with these,
this is
again,
the ship
these lunatics have wormed their way in to the point where we're all fucked if they take their ball and go home.
This is the ship that brought those astronauts who were stuck in space for 6 months or whatever it was. This is the ship that brought them home. That's what this is. Although, according to the CNBC article, hours later, Musk said he rescinded that decision after an ex-user urged him to cool off. Let me go back to this. So then, it looks like this is a retweet. Someone wrote, President versus Elon, who wins? My money's on Elon. Trump should be impeached, and J.D. Vance should replace him.
Oh, Jesus.
Elon retweeted that and wrote, yes. Again, this relationship turned sour so fast. Again, here's Elon, 4:26 p.m. The Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. And then he posted a video of Trump partying with Jeffrey Epstein. So it appears the relationship, the fun, has come to an end.
The honeymoon period is over.
This could be interesting. I mean, will it just go away? I don't have anything in front of me, an exact quote, but some of the things I saw in the news today was Trump doesn't want to talk to Elon. He's not interested, but other people think if he behaves himself, Trump eventually will.
Didn't we go through this with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie at one point in time?
They weren't friends for a while, right? There was something that happened with those two.
Yeah, there's something happened. But, folks, this is why I don't cut a promo on our current squatter-in-chief every week, because why ruin everybody's day? But we knew what was going to happen. And the only thing we get, I can't say I told you so to everybody, because right at half of us knew what was going to happen. But now it's all happening. The country's going to shit. He's fired the people who knew how to run everything and put stooges and criminals and fanatics and suck-ups in charge of every department. He's trying to make schools teach your children their fake version of history. And basically, this presidency, whether it's a success or not, will be determined in 2029 if we're still alive, have our personal belongings and some of our life savings left.
But in terms of the program, in terms of the booking, you know, we talked about heel versus heel, babyface versus babyface, but you also have the J.D. Vance dynamic now, because he's Trump's number two. We know how Trump wants his number two to behave. J.D. Vance has been a complete ass kisser, including in that, you know, Zelensky Oval Office thing. But now here's Elon Musk basically saying, yeah, your number two should be president. You should be impeached. It puts J.D. Vance in an interesting situation. Whose side does he take?
Well, first of all,
this is like when the Rat Pack
Musk
broke up in Mid-South.
Well, no, because here's the thing. Elon Musk knows that ain't going to happen, but he knows that it'll get under Donald Trump's skin if he says that it should happen. And I think, well, just also, and J.D. Vance obviously is going to, if Trump says anything, J.D. Vance will be more than there to support it. But if Donald Trump was run over by a bus tomorrow, then who knows what J.D. Vance would be saying, because he is a more intelligent, evil, weird motherfucker that could potentially fuck us in even worse ways than Trump, because Trump's such an incompetent bumblefuck that he gets in his own way a lot and prevents the real bad shit from happening.
It appears there were a few tweets. Like I said, some stuff had been deleted, so this is a little out of order, but this is from early on in the fight. Elon Musk on Twitter: "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House and Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude." And then Laura Loomer, who is
such specificity also. Like he almost like he had it on notes of what he had arranged, but go ahead.
Well, there's a woman named Laura Loomer who I know because she's been in the news for the last, 6 months or so. She's a right-wing commentator who apparently has a very special relationship with Donald Trump to the point where she makes suggestions about who should be hired and not. Well, she retweeted the Elon thing, and I'm not going to read all of her nonsense, but Elon commented on that. "Oh, and some food for thought as they ponder this question. Trump has 3.5 years left as president, but I will be around for 40 plus years." Because again, you're talking about the Republican politicians. I mean, that's why, they're fighting over this bill. I think Elon thinks he may be able to sway someone, who knows, but it's also about future influence. And, again, this could be a very interesting long-term thing. It could be a short-term thing. We'll see, but we've never seen anything like this break out and just happen in real time in the middle of the day. If you watched any news channel, like everyone's like, "Whoa, here's another one." Another tweet came in. So we'll stay on top of this.
Yeah, it's nice and sad. Thank you, everyone, for helping the United States become the center of attention in all the wrong ways.
I'm waiting for the fucking tweet from Trump like, "And by the way, the Cybertruck is fucking ugly. You have to be a dickless idiot to drive that shit." I'm waiting for him to go completely against Tesla.
They had a video. Some of his vehicles are like glued together.
What?
It's like the bumper or whatever, those little boxy things that look like the cart in a refrigerator comes in with wheels that he's got people driving around. Parts of it are apparently glued on because the glue was coming loose and the fucking front end was peeling apart. I feel confident in a crash.
Well, we'll see what happens, but this has been both political news as well as booking philosophy.
well as kind of TMZ-ish type of thing, a mixture of infotainment. And speaking, Brian, of infotainment, what we examined on a previous show we did, what in the world that poor old Ric Flair may have been talking about when he put his foot in his mouth with the tweet to Jim Ross and trying to analyze what could have brought some statement like that on, or what the fuck was going on. And we weren't very successful in trying to figure out why he did it. But then he had already kind of apologized for it. But now you told me before we went on the air, he said something else, and I hadn't had time to read up on this.
Yeah, this is a brief update just to finish the story that we told on the last show. A bunch of the listeners were sending this over. Ric Flair on Twitter, June 4th, 2025. "I try to be nice to everybody. God only knows that I've spent more money on spilt liquor in 1 year than people have in a lifetime.
What the?
I tried to be..."
Wait a minute. If he was being nice to everybody, wouldn't he give that money to like hungry children or what? I mean, how does that one thing go with the other? I'm not sure, but start from the beginning. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just.
I try to be nice to everybody. God only knows that I've spent more money on spilt liquor in 1 year than people have in a lifetime. I tried being nice, and this is my last message to everyone. I've got more money than I've got time. Go F yourself, haters. No comment needed. Live with it. Actually, learn to love it. Get back to me again when you make $3 million a year at the age of 76. That's what famous gets. Famous all in caps. And by the way, I don't recognize anyone in this conversation who is famous. So Ric Flair apparently closing the book on this whole discussion of his behavior.
A clear and concise declaration to the people that he had a contradictory opinion with there.
I tried to be nice to you, but I make more money than you. What?
No. And I spill more liquor than you.
I spill more liquor. That's right.
But he spilled more. Now he made more money to spend more. No, he spent more money on the liquor that he spilled than they made, or that they spent on the liquor they spilled.
God only knows that I've spent more money on spilt liquor in 1 year than people have in a lifetime. Just saying.
Okay, so now wait a minute. Now that's what it is. That taking that as the grammatically correct statement. How much money do you think you've spent in your lifetime on spilled liquor, Brian?
Oh, I spill it for free.
Oh, God damn it. I've just as okay, then how much do you think the average son of a bitch?
You know, to be very honest with you,
how often do you spill liquor?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't really have too many occasions where I just spilled drink. Oops, there goes my drink. Maybe every now and then, like a little drop comes out because, you know, you're walking with a drink, but it's never like, oh, I spilled another one. Let me get another one. I dropped another one.
All over the rug. You slosh, or you slosh.
It wasn't me. It was the Egyptian.
If you're walking back and forth in the bar, restaurant, nightclub, whatever, you may be a slosh. Every once in a while, there's a josh, or a joust, or a fucking elbow in the ribs, and you spill or whatever. But I don't think that's a big.
Well, let's do the math.
It's like that for the average person. A lifetime of spilled liquor could be $72.48.
If that much, I guess let's do the math. If you buy 20 kamikazes, and what were the 1986 prices for kamikazes?
Well, let's just use around $5.
$5 a kamikaze. You buy 20.
Well, there's $100.
There's $100. How much spillage is going to happen from that? $1's worth?
Well, what if you're carrying the tray and you're drunk and you spill the whole thing? Then that could add up.
I didn't even think of that. Mass spillage. I didn't even think of that. I'm thinking drink at a time. I'm thinking drink at a time, not Ric Flair. Oh, I got 20 drinks. Oh, shit. Do you have to charge me? Yeah, we have to charge you. We just gave you all those and you spilled them everywhere.
I just don't know that. Again, I love Rick. I'm not sure that it's a compelling argument when you have to put your tax return up on the fucking post as part of the argument in defense of something that you said.
Well, you know, I'm just glad that unlike Jim Ross, Ric Flair doesn't look for attention. Unlike that dastardly Jim Ross always looking for attention with his cancer.
I hate JR the way he goes out dressed like Christmas packages all wrapped up, and that horrible fashion sense he's got, and all of the JR branded products like wings and weed and whiskey and antidepressants. I don't know what's going on.
I saw Jim Ross with an IV. He'll do anything for sympathy. Woo!
He looked at me as I walked by like he expected me to help him up.
He tripped on the liquor that was spilled.
And now somebody's going to use as the headline, Jim Ross injured, slipping and Ric Flair denies intervention.
That's what he should open next. The Ric Flair slip and slide.
And it's fucking kamikazes being shot down the water slide. So if you go down belly first or feet first and on your belly, you can drink at the same time.
Nothing sends you for a ride like wooski. Woo!
All righty then. Well, we wish all parties the best in this situation. And Rick has basically said this will be his final word on the subject, unless he forgets that he said this. He might say something else.
When you make $3 million a year at the age of 76, that's what famous gets.
Thought it was 3.6.
He said $3 million a year at the age of 76.
Oh, at the age of 7, I thought it was 3.6 at the age of 70. I wanted to get this correct. You know, we got to get these facts and figures correct, Brian.
Yeah, you know who's looking at this one?
It's very important.
The IRS is probably looking at this tweet right now. But yes, it's very important.
I would say, and of course, and that's a gross now before expenses. But speaking of the IRS and people looking at finances and other alleged potential criminal activity, an old friend of ours has poked his head back out in public again, Brian. And before we go onto the wrestling portion of the program, as if this has been already the wrestling portion of the program, we got to talk about our old friend Colin Thompson, who stunningly is getting back in the podcasting business and has issued a press release. Well, I know technically he's been in it.
He never left.
But back in a public way, he's showing his face in public, and he's issued a press release saying that he wants to be like the voice of transparency and honesty in podcasting and a reformer of the horrible practices, which is sort of like saying, yeah, let's go hire Charles Manson to give us an insight into cult behavior. And we felt that we couldn't let the public be preyed on by a potential person who allegedly has committed numerous alleged crimes and is trying now to get people to buy his level of bullshit again.
Is that a question?
That was more of a declarative statement. I will say, well, you know, let me ask you this. I'll ask you a question and then you can begin to answer because you are under oath. You can pretty much refer to somebody as being a liar and they can't take any action against you if you have actual documentation of them telling lies. That pretty much removes any defense. So Colin Thompson is a liar. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Colin Thompson is a liar. We could say that as the party that was the lone party active from the creditor standpoint throughout the bankruptcy proceedings. We were involved. We wanted to find out what happened. Where did our money go? How was this man behaving as the head of Kast
Where did other people's money go?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's important to note our situation's a little different than everyone else's. Everyone kind of has a different situation. With ours, he stole the money. It's a little different because he had the choice to send us money. He decided not to.
Yes. But we enjoyed having found out where a lot of this money went, ours and other people's.
We have a better idea of everything than probably anyone. Quite frankly, we have all the documents that they submitted. We have all the documents that Podcast One submitted. We have documents that they don't know we have. We've done a lot of due diligence. We've done a lot of research. We've done a lot of investigating. So, yeah, we didn't expect the bankruptcy to give us back the money that was stolen. That's not what bankruptcy court does. Bankruptcy court, to be very honest with you, and you could even ask a bankruptcy attorney, bankruptcy court is there to fuck creditors. And unfortunately, they presume that the person applying for bankruptcy isn't a crook. And we knew that there was very little that could really be done in bankruptcy court. This was his game. This was his plan.
But the key part of bankruptcy court is that the court part of it still means you're under oath. You have to participate in discovery. You have to file documents. You have to answer questions. And you basically have to perform all of the functions as if you were in any other court in the land, which gives people an excellent opportunity, just speaking in just abstract terms, Brian, and not specifically about any ongoing litigation. It gives people an excellent opportunity to figure out who done it and how they done it and get the stuff to prove it.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't want to get involved because of how costly it would be, which led to some funny moments in the bankruptcy court where the judge would kind of question how much we were spending to try to get answers and at the same time say, how come none of the other creditors are here? Well, they don't want to spend the money that this is all costing to try to get answers. And Colin certainly didn't expect us to, and he certainly tried to use some retaliatory tactics in the middle of the bankruptcy to get rid of us, and none of them really worked at all.
I don't know why he didn't expect that, when I believe that's almost exactly what I told him when he first, well, I didn't tell him. I told old Rob Ellen, I said, we are going to get our money eventually, some way or another. Give us our money or we will not go away ever.
And we're going to talk about Rob Ellen in the future, and we're going to talk a lot more about the bankruptcy in the future. There's a lot to talk about. And on the topic of the bankruptcy, before we even talk about our lawsuit, there are deposition videos. Stephen P. New deposed Colin Thompson for, I want to say, 7 hours in August. And there's more than that, too. But we have videos if you want to see. It's easy to make yourself a babyface when you're writing your own bio. It's not as easy when people see you and hear you and watch you. So if you want to see Colin Thompson in action, if you want to hear Stephen P. New in action, 877-50-STEVE, get even with Stephen. NewLawOffice.com. There's a plug on the experience. Wow. But if you want to check that out, it's on the official Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Arcadian Vanguard. It's also on Twitter, all sorts of social media. It will be on more social media very soon.
And let me just flesh it out real quick, because you may have glossed over, because we know what you're talking about. But for the people, yes, this is a video of an official deposition under oath of Stephen P. New examining, cross-examining, whatever the terminology is, of Colin Thompson, the Kast Media weasel in question, and with his attorney by his side. And there's some wonderful exchanges. And this video is obviously, since Arcadian Vanguard is the entity that is involved officially with this bankruptcy, this video is Arcadian Vanguard property and is on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, because we do everything by the book over here. And we encourage you to look at a squirming, sweating. I hope you put them up in order so people can see. First, he's got a jacket, and then he loses the jacket, and then there's another button loose on, then he's wiping his head, and then he's just, he's almost shirtless by the time this thing is over with.
Well, after the first break, Stephen, let's just say we have reason to believe that Stephen caused Colin to feel quite upset and that they were afraid about continuing. Well, that's based on what his lawyer called our lawyer about. You know, Stephen did a great job because, you know,
the whole crying thing is hearsay and we can't prove it.
Not on video. It's not on video.
Not on video. It's just being talked about by many people.
But again, we have the deposition videos up. There'll be more. We'll talk more about them in a moment. We have a lawsuit. We'll talk more about this in the future as well. We're coming back with more about this regularly.
Yeah, the other lawsuit has been going on for a bit now, based on the information that we were able to obtain in the previous proceeding. And this type of lawsuit is the one where somebody's going to say, yeah, you need to give these sumbitches their money. Well, that type of lawsuit.
If they look at the facts, that may be what happens. And let's see what a jury thinks of Mr. Thompson. But we have sued Colin Thompson, as well as his co-conspirators, his wife, Christine Thompson, his father, Rod Thompson, his father-in-law, who's currently harboring him, or he lives with. I don't know if I'm allowed to say harboring. If I'm not, strike that from the record. But he currently lives with Matthew Yu and Podcast One and Live One. And again, I said it before, our situation The Cornette shows with Kast Media is different than Theo Von's situation. It's different than Brandon Schaub's situation. It's different than any other shows. And, you know, you wanted a fight, you're going to get a fight. And we got the facts. And we got a lot here. You know, you brought something up before, and I know we're going to play a little bit of audio here. This may be a new recurring feature. You brought up how Colin's reemerged. And it was part of a plan. We knew this was kind of coming, where they relaunched the Kast Media website. They relaunched Colin Thompson, or launched ColinThompson.com, and he put up statements to the industry. Please share these deposition videos if anyone knows podcasters with the industry, giving a completely false representation of what happened with Kast Media based on facts. And he has lied several times in there while trying to obviously posture and present himself to an industry that he needs. He can't get work anywhere else. This guy's unemployable, in my eyes. So he's now trying to present himself as an industry reformer, which, if you went through the bankruptcy, you realize in no way is he an industry reformer. Industry reform means creators get paid and then pay the advertisers. Creator first. That's industry reform. Not, hey, we came up with a new way.
The only time you've applied reform to this guy is when you talk about reform school.
Yeah. But when you come up with a new business model, which is basically, here's how we'll get paid and get you your money and you'll believe us, you've already poisoned the well. Here's from the press release they sent out about Kast Media. Kast Media is a leading podcast studio and network known for premium, genre-defining original storytelling. I actually know what shows they have, and I know what their numbers are. They are not a industry-leading anything. And if you want to go look at the reviews of his shows, and this isn't us, because we never even talked about this. If you ever want to go look at the reviews of his shows, The Vigilante, Lost in Panama, the big one's The Opportunist, Good Cult, go look at the reviews all over Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. The audience for those shows hate those shows now. The audience for those shows say, it turns out The Opportunist isn't good without the actual host and producer who got the show to be popular, who left Kast Media after all of the bullshit. But let me go back to this. With a slate of critically acclaimed shows, Kast blends cinematic storytelling with the immediacy of podcasting. This guy went to the Court Bauer School of Buzzwords. Ridiculous. Founded by Colin Thompson, the company has a renewed focus on transparency and long-term creator empowerment.
A renewed focus on transparency since the last time we got caught.
Well, it would, in this case, it would just be a focus on transparency because there was no transparency before. And long-term creator empowerment. And is building a stronger, more resilient future media ecosystem through innovative content and industry reform. The industry reform needs to be the industry saying we're not going to work with this guy. The industry reform needs to be the advertising agency saying we're not going to give this guy any business after he previously took the business we gave him and didn't pay anyone. The industry reform needs to be to get rid of people who are grifters, people who are grifting on podcasting, looking for suckers, whether they're investors or people who don't know his name and reputation and what he's done, or people that work there who will be gullible enough to work with him. That's the problem. The problem isn't the industry. The industry for independent podcasters is wonderful. The problem is the network system, and the problem is the people like Colin who just want to look at other people as marks, for lack of a better term, that will fund their lifestyle.
Well, boy, and he lived high on the hog, as Aunt Lola would say, for a couple of years there.
Don't call his wife that.
No, I'm not talking about her. For heaven's sake, I don't want to insult hogs like that. No, I'm saying that he made it for a couple of years, and now, like you said, he's in the in-laws' basement. He's got lawsuits hanging over his head. He needs work. He's out there. He's still trying to exploit his, we'll be talking about this in the weeks to come, folks. He's still trying to exploit his contacts at Podcast One. But the reason why those people are being sued that Brian mentioned earlier is because there's a statute in the state of California where he was conducting his various activities that if you defraud someone, that you and or anyone that benefits from the proceeds of that defraudation can be hauled into court, and that's exactly who is now being hauled into court.
That's
and
right.
We have a variety of information, as Brian said. We don't want to go, we got all kinds of stuff to do today, but I want to go to the clip, because this is an example, folks, of what you can see the video on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, all the deposition videos, they're clearly marked. You can see the weasel begin to sweat and melt as questions are bombarding him, and he's trying to figure out, wait a minute, what lie did I tell before so I can tell the same one again? That type of thing on his face. And this is an example of it. And Brian, I feel like we're on the Tonight Show setting up a clip, but
yes. Ha ha. Yes.
The subject of this, believe it or not, folks, is Howie Mandel. And the fact that in some fashion, Colin Thompson and Kast Media had ended up renting studio space from Howie Mandel and or his company, and then had to do a settlement and basically got kicked out of the place. Brian, you can probably recap that a little bit better than I.
And we're going to play some audio here. And again, the full section here is available on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. It's on my Twitter page. I know Jim retweeted it, so anyone can check it out. Or just go to YouTube and search for Deposition of Colin Thompson or Kast Media or Colin Thompson, Howie Mandel. It'll come right up. But there's a studio space in a warehouse run by Howie Mandel's company on Havenhurst in Van Nuys, California. And it is the address of business for Kast Media. Although Colin's living in St. Louis, although his plates are still California, funny enough. But although he's living in St. Louis and has been since they sold the house that we found out that they had put in a trust, the address on record is still the address of this studio. So in questioning Colin about this, Stephen Pinu ran into some interesting things. There's a bunch of stuff on the bankruptcy petition, studio equipment, furniture, that are assets of Kast Media that Colin doesn't know where they are. And then finally, he says maybe they were part of the settlement for rent that he says it wasn't rent that he owed. I believe here he says that it was upcoming rent that they knew they wouldn't be able to pay, but they had months left on the lease. So again, according to what he says in his video, go watch it. According to him, the settlement was, we won't pay any more that's left on the lease. You get to keep all of our furniture and all of our equipment. And I get to use an office there, at least up to this point, which is August 1st, 2024. So let's go to this audio and we'll have a funny little end here. And I hope I explained this well. Here's Colin talking to Stephen Pinu during the deposition, August 1st, 2024, in Santa Monica, California, all about the Havenhurst studio that Kast Media had been renting, had been using, that is owned by Howie Mandel.
You don't know what that is on the balance sheet. Where is the office furniture that's valued at $29,385.81, Mr. Thompson?
I would assume that would have been part of the settlement agreement that we already discussed with the lease, the place that we were renting.
What's the settlement agreement with Howie Mandel have to do with $29,385.81 worth of furniture that you list as an asset of Kast Media as of January 31, 2024?
I made a deal, part of the settlement deal for the remainder of what we owed for the remainder of that lease was that we would do essentially a trade of equal value. That would be the equipment for the remainder of what we owed the lease. So they got the use of the equipment. We didn't have to pay the remainder of the lease. We continued to have access to the office and the studio, thereafter for a specified period of time.
Why are you still listing office furniture that went to Howie Mandel or his company or whomever in 2023 as an asset of Kast Media Inc. in January of 2024?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be on there, should it?
I don't know.
You should know. You're the CEO.
Okay, we're going to stop this now. You're badgering the witness. You're telling him what he should and shouldn't know. He's answered the question already. For you to scold him and tell him what he should and shouldn't know is not productive.
Put a good non-speaking objection on the record, Ms. Cohen.
My objection is you're badgering the witness.
I'm not badgering. I'm not Wolverining. I'm not any other rodent-ing, Mr. Thompson. Put a good non-speaking objection on the record.
Objection, badgering.
Badgering isn't even an objection. I promise this will be like a CLE. We'll get through the federal rules of evidence, federal rules of civil procedure, and everything else today. Mr. Thompson, if you made a deal whereby Howie Mandel or his company or whomever got this $29,385 worth of furniture in 2023, it shouldn't be listed as an asset in a bankruptcy petition as of January 2024, correct?
I don't know. We would have to investigate that.
All right. We will. Studio equipment. $24,748.26. Tell me about that.
That is under our fixed assets.
The total current assets.
Oh yeah, but fixed assets under total current assets. No, it's not under.
Nope, it's not under total fixed assets. Was the studio equipment part of the deal with Howie Mandel?
It is under fixed assets. Was the studio equipment part of the deal with Howie Mandel? We gave our landlord equipment and furniture in that settlement agreement.
So this $24,748.26 was part of the 2023 deal with Howie Mandel or his company, correct?
I don't know. I would have to go back and investigate.
All right. And if I ask you the same question about why equipment that was a part of a 2023 settlement is still listed as a Kast Media asset, you can't answer that question, can you?
Objection, miscast the witness's prior testimony.
Nope. You said, I don't know, I'll have to check, I'll have to get back to you, that kind of thing with respect to office furniture. I'm asking, is your question the same relative to studio equipment at $24,748.26?
Is my question the same?
Is your answer the same?
Correct. I would have to look at the detail and investigate.
All right, so let's make sure Kast Media doesn't own office furniture or studio equipment totaling those amounts as of January 2024, does it?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware that we own equipment outside of what we provided as part of that settlement agreement.
So why is it listed as an asset?
I don't know, but it's possible that it wasn't updated in the accounting software.
All right. Anything else on this page that hasn't been updated?
I don't know.
Well, let me stop it here for a second, and we have another an added feature to this. But let me just say, when he says we need to do this, we need to do that, Kast Media is one person. I mean, now they've hired a new CEO, and this guy's in for a roller coaster ride, I'm sure. But Kast Media was run and controlled by Colin Thompson. Colin Thompson owned over 99% of the stock. Colin Thompson made every single decision for the company. Colin Thompson controlled when money went out and who it went to for the company. But you ask him this here, and I don't know. He's the only one who would know this stuff. There's no one else who was in that loop.
Well, at some point, potentially in the future, when we are hopefully able to broadcast some of the testimony from the accountants he's thrown under the bus, we'll get a clearer picture of that. But there is, as you mentioned, an addendum to that clip that you just heard, Brian. It's on the YouTube channel, as you mentioned, the Arcadian Vanguard channel, and it's in written form because it's a letter, but you could read it here for the folks to fully understand the punchline of what you just heard.
Yeah, in the midst of all of this, of us being an active creditor, of us getting documents from all sorts of sources, of us deposing Colin, we deposed the CFO, then CFO of Podcast One. We got a great story about that coming up, about this guy's disappearance at the last second. But we did all of this, and while this is all happening, there are other people, obviously, there are other people who still feel slighted. There are other people who know the reality of Kast Media and know that Colin, even if they're not involved, they assume Colin's trying to spin everything that he's a victim, or he did nothing wrong, when it's quite the contrary. And Dustin Knaus who I think we've mentioned on the show previously. He was on the CoffeeZilla video, worked at Kast Media. I believe he had not necessarily stock, but he had convertible. I forget exactly what. He was supposed to have stock in the company that he got screwed out of, I believe is the story. And I could be wrong. I'm saying I believe that's the story. But he wrote a letter to the judge while all this was going on. And this was filed September 11th, 2024. Let me read it here. As a result of Mr. Thompson's frivolous spending and bad agreements, I was told he had also stopped paying rent for the Havenhurst location for 8 months. Towards the end of his time there, in, I believe, 2022 or perhaps early 2023, I was told by a person with inside knowledge that Mr. Thompson had brought investors in the Havenhurst studios to show them around. The owner of the property had security cameras everywhere and overheard Mr. Thompson telling the potential investors that Mr. Thompson owned the property and that Howie Mandel was renting the space from Mr. Thompson. Upon this, Mr. Mandel's team told Colin to vacate the building and that he was no longer allowed to conduct business there. Which would seem to contradict, again, in this video, he says he's still allowed to use that space. This letter to the court says a completely different story.
He rented the space, then he couldn't pay for it. Then he was so far behind that he had to give him his equipment and his furniture. And he said, please let me get my mail here and still come in and sit in this room and act like I've got a company. And then they catch him on security video showing people around. He's trying to sell his investors in his scheme. And he's telling them he owns the place and he rents it to Howie. This is what we're dealing with, folks, this guy.
And we don't know for sure if the settlement happened before or after this, just to be clear. We will. And by the way, apparently there's video of this. And apparently Howie Mandel may not be too interested in negative publicity or wanting to let that video out, but it's there and we're going to chase after it. So Howie, unless you want to get all upset like you got touched by someone with germs or whatever your problem is.
Oh, come on now. I can't say anything bad about people that don't want the germs.
Well,
but if he didn't want germs, he shouldn't have rented to Colin.
Again, the footage is out there. There's a lot out there that, this is known. There's a lot out there I don't think Colin knows. And, again, we'll talk about Podcast One in the future. There are people who hate Rob Ellen specifically and Podcast One Live One far more than we ever could. We just want justice. There are other parties out there right now who hate all these people a whole lot more than we do. So we're just hoping we can somehow get to them first. Please, God, let us get our court case first. But man, there are pitchforks, there are fucking machetes, there are all sorts of people out there wanting to get there. But we got Stephen Pinu, we got Andre the Giant, we got the best team. And again, we've been talking about Stephen Pinu for years. If you want to hear him at work, you want to hear the due diligence, the research, everything he did, go listen to these transcripts. Go watch them. Watch the depositions, because seeing Colin Thompson is a big part of the story. Body language is a big part of the story. Check them out, the Arcadian Vanguard video channel, and I think we'll have more about this next week.
This is the best courtroom drama since the Watergate yes. trials, or the Watergate trials. Have we told the people that at one point Colin Thompson actually listed as an asset in his bankruptcy a lawsuit against me for slandering him?
No, defamation. It was against you, against Theo
defaming
Von.
him.
Yeah, Theo Von, CoffeeZilla, a few other people, I think. Yeah.
I think Stephen Pinu set like a 500-page transcript of our omnibus down and said, could you please highlight with a yellow highlighter every place where you believe.
Well, that was one of the things when they were trying to fuck with us in the bankruptcy, which again, we expected and we kind of knew. They were trying to say that there was some sort of confidentiality violated by the YouTube videos. And we did a lot of stuff. So every time we said, name one thing, point out a single example, they couldn't do it. And it was ridiculous. Name one thing. And then he wants to pretend like he hasn't watched them. He would say, I have reason to believe they defamed me. And then the same thing. Say one thing. Name one thing that we said that purposely was a lie. Because that's what defamation is. Truth is an absolute defense. So they can't name anything. You know, there are people we talk to who have been afraid of speaking out against Kast because either they're afraid Colin will sue them or they signed a separation agreement that they think prohibits them from being able to talk honestly about it. Obviously, our case may be a different thing and we may have to subpoena some people, but there's been a lot of people out there who have really wanted to say something, and I hope they do, because the idea that this cretin thinks he's going to bounce away, pretend that the bankruptcy was some sort of vindication or victory, which it wasn't. It was bankruptcy court. But that was his plan, to just try to get away from all the lawsuits against Kast.
And now trying to paint himself as I'm a reformer and we're going to be transparent. And he's looking for people to give him more money and work with him again, as he's just gone bankrupt and is currently being sued for taking people's fucking money.
And by the way, one last thing on this. There's a company out there called James Media. You can Google them and see their website. They present themselves as being behind a lot of podcasts. On their website, they have images of Theo Von, who's a former Kast victim. Sarah Silverman, same thing. Nick Vial, if that's how you pronounce his name. Joe Rogan. I mean, they have the biggest podcast in the world on there. And we could tell you this because it's in the monthly reports that we get. Colin Thompson's been making, or let me rephrase that, Kast Media has been making a lot of money from this company over the last several months for consulting, operations consulting, running their operations, and advertising. So if you're one of the podcasters out there who he took money from.
Because now, wait a minute, because this looks like an outlaw wrestling website where you go to, what's the roster of fucking Oshkosh Championship Wrestling? And you see Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, whatever. There's no indication that any of these podcasts are actually affiliated or how with this company. There's just pictures of it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're allowed to reveal the specifics of the contract, but we have the contract between Kast Media and James Media. And let's just say Kast Media would make a good amount of money off every cent that came in. So again, if you're one of those podcasts, you should know who's behind you. You should know who's working on your behalf or who's representing that they are. Colin Thompson's out there with Kast Media. He's now the chief creative officer because he's so creative with all of his little stories. And he's also with James Media. Or Kast Media is with James Media. Something to look at in the future. And again, we're going to have a lot more about this in the future. For the record, let's just end with, they owe us $250,000 plus in their own words. That's what they say they owe us. And that's where we are.
And by the way, Colin, just on a personal basis, I called you a liar before. And as we mentioned, truth is the ultimate defense. But if you want to take me to court, well, let's do it all at the same time. Because you're going to be in court with us, so we might as well be in court with you. If you can prove that I have lied about you, then please feel free. But otherwise, Colin, you're a liar and you took our money.
And everyone
prove me wrong.
Well, again, we'll have more about this in the future.
Well, let's go from somebody that has very little conviction in their voice when they speak to somebody that has very little conviction in their voice when they speak. It was a big debut for, I guess, people who were waiting for the debut, but the debut of our friend from AEW, Mariah May, over in NXT now, she came out and said, I have arrived. And that was her debut, basically. There was a little bit more to it, but the AEW audience is all fired up about it, and the internet audience is all fired up about it. The NXT crowd, because they are a mix of the two groups that I just talked about, we're happy to see it. But we need to judge this in the overall scheme of things. It's not like they just signed Mildred Burke. We don't know what her name's going to be yet, but Brian, she's got a look she's just signed with their talent agency because, you know, she got the perfect face for movies, that type of thing. But is she going to make a big difference in the WWE women's roster gene pool that is quite deeper than the kiddie pool that she was in before?
Well, she's really good, I have to say. I think she's really good. Will she do well in WWE? I think she's kind of custom made for WWE. I think she's probably better than just about all the women in NXT right now. And that's, you know, one of the weird things is her going to NXT, and Julia and Stephanie Vacker, or Vacker, whatever it is, they both just got called up. They're both on the main roster now. They were in NXT for a very short period of time, one coming from Mexico, Japan, and an AEW pay-per-view, and the other one coming from Stardom, or Marigold, or some other word.
Gleet?
Gleet!
Gleet! I just always...
We need to do an update on the Japanese women's scene at some point soon, because there's always some new name popping up, but Mariah May was working over there, got the AEW deal. They gave her a push right away with the Toni Storm thing. And really, when you look at Toni Storm's like rise in popularity, it was all during the Mariah May feud, it seemed like. And then they put her over as the champion. She was over with their fans, it seemed like. And then she lost the Toni Storm feud. She was off TV and never came back. And the word was that she wanted to go WWE, and Toni knew it. So Toni wasn't going to use her. And then you get another one of these moments where someone from AEW debuts not on the main roster, but on NXT. And the commentators have to be like, they know who he is, or she is, but they can, oh my God, they're here! Oh,
it's
no!
her!
I can't believe what I'm seeing! You also can't say the name!
I don't know the name of the person that I am going crazy over.
But you see, they could spin it another way, because for this example, it could be, there's a blonde woman in lingerie standing up there! All of a sudden! But here she is, Mariah May. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, she is going to figure glamour in it some kind of way, because that's basically what happened. Is the other young ladies are arguing over who's going to be the NXT Women's Champion. And I think Jane Wayne Gacy has the belt right now. And the lights go out and they come back on. The spotlight is on the balcony area, and she's standing there and she's got the microphone and the people cheer, right? And she says something like, I have arrived and I am here. And basically, she was speaking very slowly, very deliberately. She had something that they had prepared for her, and she recited it. And it was just a tease, and the NXT women's division just got a lot more glamorous. But she never said her name, so we don't know what it's going to be. Announcers couldn't call her by what they don't know it's going to be. And that was it, the end. So we'll see what happens, but she is a fine-looking young lady, and we wish her the best in all of her future endeavors.
They announced this week also, right after she debuted, she signed with the Paradigm Talent Agency, a full-service entertainment agency that represents a wide range of talent in film, television, music, theater, and other areas.
That just happens to be owned by...
Who?
They're all part of the deal, aren't they?
Is this part of their thing? I'm not sure. Well, it says here, she joins the Paradigm roster alongside top women in professional wrestling stars, including Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan, Jade Cargill, and Alexa Bliss.
Well, yeah, and there's guys up. I think Punk is with them, I believe, and some of the other guys, but aren't they?
Are they owned by TKO?
They're either part of the family, or is it like the Fullers and the Fields family down in Alabama? They're related somehow by blood, but they're still all part of the family.
If I Google who is Paradigm Talent Agency, it tells me the same nonsense the other thing. Paradigm was founded in 1992 by Sam Gorez, who continues to be the executive chairman and CEO.
Somebody, I'm not crazy, but well, let me rephrase that. Somebody involved in that talent agency is involved with the WWE in some kind, or the overlords of it now in some kind of fashion, as I recall. I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
But anyway, the point being, every time that the WWE is picking and choosing now who they see that comes available that they can fit into the program. And whereas, as we know, Tony will pick up anybody that they go crazy about on a fucking message board or whatever for 15 minutes. And anybody that's mostly ever worked for the WWE, and the WWE is being more surgical with it and more future oriented. The guys and girls that they have gotten from AEW are all of the age and the potential and the capability. Not saying it always pans out. Some people get hit by trucks, but the age and etc. and the talent level and the look that they can make stars in 2 to 5 years. Instead of, they don't need to find any game changers because they don't need to change the game. They're making a fortune. They want people for the future. Tony has to wait until somebody, some name for some reason that still has some appeal to the general public gets sideways with the WWE. And those are becoming fewer and farther between. So it's a completely opposite situation where young guys or girls with a future are flowing from AEW to WWE. And most of the time, either the other direction flow comes from guys they cut that ain't gonna make any difference anyway, or, well, the Chris Jericho was at the start, Punk was already gone, but the occasional name that they can get that still has some cachet in the industry. And who is that right now? Am I droning on, Brian, or do you see what I'm saying?
No, it's a bit of a drone. No, what I was going to say is,
son of a bitch.
You know, it's just interesting the way it's happened, though. Like I mentioned, Julia and Stephanie Vecchare. They both kept their names when they came in. And she's coming in off Miro reemerging with his old name, Aleister Black reemerging with his old name, but more specifically, maybe Ricky Starks coming in. Same thing. Look who it is! He's here! Maybe we could say Ricky! And then you find out it's Ricky Saints. Is that an AEW thing at this point more than a we want to own your name thing?
I don't know. Stephanie Lacquer, Varnish, what's her name? Nevertheless, she was a big name in Japan, and so was Julia, correct?
Stephanie
as far
was,
as the women's.
I think Stephanie was bigger in Mexico, but Stephanie
was bigger in Mexico, and Julia was from Japan. That's what, okay, they want to go to those places. They might figure, because I've said it before, I don't understand the decision-making process and who keeps their name and who doesn't. Oh my God, we can't let this guy keep Joe Smith, but fuck McGee is fine. I don't have any idea. But it would seem to me that in markets where anybody might be over that are emerging markets for the WWE, if Stephanie was over in Mexico or Julia was over in Japan and they're wanting to go to those places, there's names they can already talk about. That may have played some part in the decision. I don't know.
Well, we'll see what happens. She debuted. She has arrived. She is there. She has signed with the talent agency. The article in Deadline said it was Mariah May who signed. Is that her real name? Actually, now I don't even know. Let's check out what her name is. Mariah May.
Her real name is probably Gertrude McGillicuddy.
Mariah May, who, by the way, debuted in June in NXT, for the record. Her real name is Mariah May Mead. Mead.
Well, Madeline Murray O'Hare would like a word.
See, I mean, I guess, is there anything to, one last thing about the whole name thing, for it to be the wrestler's decision? For a wrestler not to want their real name to be signed up by WWE for merchandising or whatever else, but then they can't use it, do you encounter that a lot? Like guys who, they have the option, or, you know, like Ricky Starks decided apparently, or he says he did, to be Ricky Saints. Mariah May is her real name. That's her first name and her middle name, according to this. Not wanting to sign that away. Is there anything up? Is there anything to that?
Well, see, you can't sign it away. You can sign the rights for a period of time, but you can't sign it away if it's really your name. So that's part of the bone of contention, or at least it used to be when I was in the office, is if it was somebody's real name and or they had prior usage of it in wrestling, if it wasn't their real name, but they had still used it, then when you signed the contract, you were giving them, license to use that in promotion and marketing, merchandising, whatever, for the time that you're there, but they couldn't have it forever. But if they made the name up and gave it to you, that was their intellectual property, and they could do anything they wanted to with it in going forward in the future, including an up to, with the fake Razor and Diesel thing, just putting two other fucking yahoos out there under that name. So that's why I was always, and it's not even like it wasn't even determined by star power, because they brought John Cena in and made his name John Cena when he was nobody. And he had been the prototype, which I didn't do that. That was, I'm not knocking the gimmick, but I'm saying that he had already been calling himself the prototype in California. And we met John and said, okay, it's his thing. Fine. Let's see what he can fucking do. The prototype. They didn't want that. Fine. But they gave him his real name, which they, again, it wasn't like, oh my God, we've got the biggest star in the world that we can advertise under this name, so we've got to do that. He was nobody at that point in time on a national basis. I bet you Vince just said, I don't like the prototype. What's his name? He's going to come out and fucking face off with Kurt Angle, John Cena. Okay, that sounds like a real name. And then there you go. And he lucked out somehow. I don't know how else to explain it. But you never can tell, it's a case by case basis, and you never know what they're thinking.
And a few years later, Bryan Danielson became Daniel Bryan, which I always thought was just the worst name. It just didn't sound right. It just sounded off.
Yeah. And again, you could never figure. Randy Orton, you kind of understood because he was a second generation wrestler in the Orton family name or whatever. Cody Rhodes, that makes sense. But
look what they did to Kurt Hennig's son. Before he was Curtis Axel, he was Michael McGillicuddy. How's anyone getting over with that name?
Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Brian, but what you really need out of this whole thing is a good restful night's sleep.
Boy, I know it.
That's what you need. And guess our old friends are back. You remember our friends at Beam? Our friends at Beam have beamed back down. And folks, if you're a new listener to the program, we're welcoming them back now, but they were with us in the past. They are the makers and the manufacturers and the masterminds behind Beam's Dream Powder. And if you want to get a good night's sleep, folks, Ole Anderson was famous for saying, all the wrestlers always call me and say, Ole, can I have a day off? And I don't book them, and then they've got a day off. And they don't have to do anything. But I'm a booker. I think for a living. So how can I take a day off? Just get up and not think? And see, that's the thing. You may be laying awake all night thinking about all the finishes you want to do, or the big angles, or the TV programs, or whatever. And you're laying there at 3 o'clock in the morning, or possibly thinking about some of your real life problems. And you're tossing and turning. And you can't even, you just can't lay down and just snooze yourself to sleep. And that's where the dream powder comes in, folks, because it will change everything. And Brian, you know this better than anybody, because not only is your lovely wife, Suzanne, a chronic user of the Beam's dream powder.
I don't know if I would phrase it like that, but she certainly is
habitual.
I don't know if I would phrase it like that, but she's certainly a fan of Beam, and she was very excited when it showed back up. I think the words were, "This is mine."
Yes, and Stacy does the same thing, because she has a problem with the tossing and turning and laying awake at night without sleep. But the Dream powder is an all-natural sleep blend with science-backed ingredients. Brian, you got to follow the science of the lambs.
No, this is not the science of the lambs. This is science.
Well, a lot of lambs have given their lives for science. But the Beam Dream powder...
yeah, that
is an all-natural sleep blend with science-backed ingredients designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. And unlike other sleep aids, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me tell you what, there's no next day grogginess, just real deep sleep that helps you actually feel good in the morning. You don't get up the next day groggy. You wake up actually refreshed, not exhausted, just ready to take on the day. As the first 3 weeks Stace would take it, she'd wake up and want to punch somebody. But she'd do it with a smile on her face. She was beaming.
Yeah, that may not have anything to do.
If you're going to take on the day, you got to get the jump on it. Get aggressive. Hey, before they get the chance, boom. Beam has improved, I'll have you know, over 17.5 million nights of sleep. Of course, that's not one person. That's all the people that have taken the various beams. And 90% of users surveyed reported better sleep and waking up refreshed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's not like you took some kind of tranquilizer and you wake up the next day and your tongue's hanging out like a long red necktie and it tastes like a sandhog just pulled his foot out of your mouth and you can't open your eyes. No, you wake up and you're perky and you're beaming and you're ready to open your eyes and throw the stuff in your suitcase and rush on over to the airport and get to the gate for your flight and then realize you hadn't planned to go anywhere that day. But you're perky. And
this may not be the greatest example. It's a great way to get a great night's sleep and feel great the next day. Great.
Yes, and no tossing and turning, kicking and screaming in the night. Screaming, "Destiny, destiny, no escaping, that's for me." You won't do that.
Is that what you do?
You'll be right there. It's a deep sleep. It's almost a suspended animation with Beam's
No, it's a wonderful, healthy night's sleep. It's not almost suspended animation.
They did a scientific survey. You actually only age 15 minutes every 8 hours. You sleep on Beam Dream Powder because it suspends the molecules from discomposing.
You almost made me believe you there for a second. I'm like, oh, he's talking about something serious. Then you went right back to this, ladies and gentlemen.
Your molecules are always decomposing, Brian.
Let's talk about the everyday human being, mom and pop, son and daughter, everything.
Stacy and Suzanne.
And
the wives. It all starts with the wives, and then they pass it down to the children, and they like COVID. Stacy passed that to me over Christmas.
Well, don't blame her for that. What's wrong with you? Go stop.
Well, who am I going to blame? The squirrels? Plus, folks, for a limited time right now, because they're back and they're anxious to please the cult of Cornette and put you to sleep as only they can. Beam's Dream Powder will put you to sleep better than AEW Wrestling. And right now, they're giving our listeners the best offer yet, up to 40% off. For a limited time only, try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off. That's a limited time. Again, I say a limited time, so act now, rush, hurry, scurry, don't be late. Go to shopbeam.com, shop, B-E-A-M, beam.com/JCE. Use the code JCE at checkout. Shopbeam.com/JCE, code JCE at checkout for up to 40% off. You're getting twice as much as you're paying for practically. Roughly doing the math there.
Let's not roughly do anything. Let's stick to the figures. Up to 40% off.
Yes, that's almost half.
Up to 40% off. Let's just stick with that.
Well, it's close either way. You say potato, and I say just drink some Beam Dream Powder and just go to sleep. Go to sleep, my baby.
Oh, all right.
Go to sleep, little girl, little boy, little whatever you are. See, I'm singing lullabies to the children. Go to sleep, take your beam, shut your face for the night so I don't have to listen to you griping about your toys.
It's like an alien landed and like they look like a human, but their voice somehow murders society. Beam, ladies and gentlemen. Like Jim said, let's not focus on the singing. Let's focus on it'll put you to sleep better than AEW. One more time, Jim. What's that beaming promo code and link?
Shopbeam.com/JCE. Use the code JCE at checkout. Up to 40% off. What more can you ask? Welcome back, Beam. Have people beaming in no time. Well, speaking of beaming, Brian, you know, that's what they used to call it when they beamed the TV signal into your home back in the pioneer days of television, the cathode ray tube, that type of thing. They were beaming these broadcasts into people's homes, whether they liked it or not. And we did a piece a week or two ago on some of the early pro wrestling on television, the experimental broadcasts, and the early cities like St. Louis and Schenectady and Buffalo and Baltimore that got TV in the 40s. But we mentioned a little bit about Los Angeles, but thanks to our friend Adam. Where the fuck's he from again? He signed this thing somewhere or another. Adam. Well, he's from East Yorkshire. I didn't want to just paint the country with a broad brush, but he has got amazing research. And Los Angeles, there was a lot of information here, and I wanted to spend some time going over it individually as a city rather than grouping it in with the other places, because there's so much here, and it's very interesting how that the wrestlers were able to handle in those days this new medium of television, whereas the guys have been getting kind of screwed in the modern era. Even the big contracts now, when you think about it, the TV rights fees are so monumental that the boys ain't getting a piece of that. They're getting their guaranteed money, but the television and before that was pay-per-view for the last 30 years. The guys were supposed to get extra money off the pay-per-view, but it sure wasn't like you drew a $1.5 million house in 1987 in the Baltimore Arena or whatever. So anyway, I digress. Did you know that in Los Angeles, it was announced on January 15th, 1947, that commercial television would be coming to the city of Los Angeles? And Paramount, at least then, owned the TV station KTLA that began broadcasting on Channel 5 on January 22nd, 1947, the first commercial television broadcast west of the Mississippi River. And the opening 2-hour broadcast was hosted by Cecil B. DeMille and Bob Hope.
Wow. You said 47?
47.
Wow.
Now, wrestling had been broadcast on KTLA under its former name, which was W6XYZ TV Los Angeles, when they were doing experimental broadcasts.
I like that name. Why didn't we go with that system?
It would have been such a catchy jingle. A lot of the early television stations sound like the call letters of the ham radio. You know,
yeah.
This is W6XJ4.
Experimental, like you said.
But then obviously they had to shorten it down a little bit for wider consumption. And by the way, this was before, for people who have ever been like me and TV nerds and used to read the TV guide or just like TV stations, the reason why that some stations are WHAS and some stations are KTLA is because they have gradually adopted a plan where everything east of the Mississippi River began with a W and everything west of Mississippi began with a K. But there are still some early stations that violate that rule in both places, or at least there were as of several years ago when I quit paying attention. But that's where the dividing line between W and K came in. Anyway, commercial television.
Well, can I stop you real quick?
Go ahead.
So he was saying that wrestling aired on the predecessor to KTLA when it was an experimental channel. Wrestling aired on it then?
They had been broadcast on an experimental basis as early as August 1945, but I don't know if it was regular broadcasts.
I mean, it's the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing I can possibly go back and look through programs at. That's why I'm very interested in, if wrestling was airing on that. Is it something they even told people about, or is it just, hey, you guys are trying to figure out a way to do this? You could air this.
Well, see, that's the thing is there wasn't a lot of people. Nobody could watch it anyway, because there were so few television sets in public hands. But I would imagine at that point, it was the television station or facility that came to the promoter and said, hey, can I just, we're trying this stuff out. Can I try to broadcast this? Okay.
But he didn't say if it was the Olympic or Hollywood Legion. He just said they aired some wrestling.
Some wrestling on an experimental basis from LA.
Huh.
But by the spring of 1947, matches from the Los Angeles Grand Olympic Auditorium were being broadcast on KTLA on Wednesday nights. And that brought the television boom with Gorgeous George and et cetera. And we had talked about LA wrestling had been dead during World War II and how that Johnny Doyle and that crowd had resurrected the gates by that time, and then television hit and boom, things exploded. Gorgeous George became a phenomenon, etc. But that only lasted for a little while, the box office boom. And we mentioned it when we were talking previously about classic or pioneer TV wrestling. At first, yes, it brought a lot of new eyes to the product, but then the promoters were worried because it had happened in different places, and we're about to see it happen again here. If you gave it to them for free on TV, why did they want to go and pay to see it in person? And that's how that over the years, the promoters learned to use TV as more of an infomercial. And the theory was, don't give them the main events on television. And that shaped the TV of wrestling for the next 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, and you would see that in LA programs where it would have the card, and all of a sudden for like the main event it would say no TV. But the rest of the card would say TV.
Well, and all Bruiser in the 70s still did, maybe even the early 80s still did the same thing, because all the guys that were promoters or top stars in the 50s, that was terminology, and they would use it, no TV on this bout, to make it extra, oh shit, I got to go see it in person. But the box office at the Olympic was booming from 47 to 50. But then on 21st of January, 1950, a change in the wrestling landscape in Southern California led to speculation that the wrestling boom was finally coming to an end. A Los Angeles Evening Citizen News columnist discussed the possibility, because there were two rival circuits. Johnny Doyle had the Olympic Auditorium, Ocean Park Arena, and Jeffrey's Barn. And Hugh Nichols was the one booking the shows at Hollywood Legion Stadium and San Diego Coliseum. And obviously Hollywood Legion Stadium was a site of one of the national broadcasts, or one that would evolve into a national broadcast also. So the columnist reported that they had reached a working agreement so they could share talent. And the reason that Doyle said they made that move so that we could counterbalance the effects of the downward movement, the television situation, which is knocking the dickens out of our box office. Because at that point in time, people were starting to stay home. It was becoming a thing now. And also in 1953, I believe, a recession started or was getting worse.
Yeah.
So people were starting to, all across the country, start figuring out we can see all the wrestling we want. We don't have to pay anything. But nevertheless, Doyle stated, when there were only 70,000 sets in the area, it may have helped to bring fans out to see the boys, but now with 350,000 television sets in the area, it seems even the old standbys who used to come out are sitting at home watching the matches on television. So, again, that's the thing, is that originally TV created curiosity, but then maybe it created complacency. When it was a brand new thing and wow, grandma don't have to go to the smoky arena to see the wrestling, it made her a fan. But at the same point, now all of a sudden, it's all on television. Why are the fans going to buy a ticket?
Well, that's one of the things I've always wondered about the early days of wrestling on TV, because when you ever hear about it, either, from people who lived through it, and we have fewer and fewer of them nowadays, or just contemporary, coverage, that's when all of a sudden you had a boom in female viewership. And I don't know how much that affected female attendance. I'm sure it went up to some degree, but not necessarily the same way. But you hear kids talking about, I used to watch wrestling with my grandmother when it first came on. It was that stuff. And all of a sudden you had a lot of women watching. And that's when all of a sudden these fan clubs all popped up. And if you have any of that fan club stuff from the early days of wrestling on TV, and they have pictures.
All women.
You have pictures of, and one guy usually just like standing there on the side. But it's all this stuff from the 50s. It's all women who got really dressed up to meet these wrestlers. And, there's a lot of them. And there were a lot of fan clubs and, wrestling on TV. And I wonder how much that changed again after Dumont went under.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, as I said, the grannies and even the respectable ladies, it wasn't cricket then. It wasn't done for respectable women to go to boxing and wrestling by themselves, unescorted by men, etc. But then all of a sudden, they're able to see it anyway, and then all these guys are heartthrobs. But
then there are characters that appeal directly to women. Gorgeous George, as a heel, but still, it was something that, if a woman of that day would know who Gorgeous George was. There's a reason why Gene Stanley became suddenly really popular. It was women. I mean, it was all
even
women.
Buddy Rogers, because it was like Flair. Or they could look over and see their boyfriend fat sitting on the couch or whatever. They could look at Nature Boy Buddy Rogers and go, oh, shit. But nevertheless, so Doyle and Eaton are working together, and they're showing wrestling from all these different venues that they promote around Southern California. And the research here goes on to say the problem was that the grapplers booked by Doyle did not benefit from the television revenue. Wrestlers were paid a percentage of the gate on the shows which they were booked. The general feeling was that Doyle's expansive use of television was damaging the box office and, by extension, the wrestlers' pay. So Johnny Doyle had to make an announcement after this announcement of their booking offices being merged, had to make another announcement that the wrestlers would refuse to appear on any arena show where bouts were televised. Doyle had offered them a portion of the television fees, but that was squarely rejected in favor of dispensing with filming arena bouts altogether. And then they reached out to Eileen LaBelle for comment. Remember, she was Gene LaBelle's mother and Mike LaBelle's mother, the LA promoter, but she owned the license for boxing and wrestling at the Olympic Auditorium. And she said, if the wrestlers refuse to appear on television, we'll have no alternative but to cancel the telecasts. And then the guy from the TV stations, or several of them, are saying, we're trying to work this out, blah, blah, blah. They even debated it on a special program broadcast on KECA television. Johnny Doyle, Mike Hirsch, head of television for ABC in Hollywood, and a couple of other people debating this. So basically, Doyle was going to miss out on large amounts of television revenue. The wrestlers were going to lose out on bookings or lose out on, some type of money. And this went into April. Apparently, Baron Michelle Leone was scheduled to meet Dave Levin in the main event of a card held at the Hollywood Legion Stadium. But before the show started, 10 wrestlers who were booked on the card refused to wrestle when they discovered there was intention to film the show. And the chairman of the stadium committee had to announce to the fans there'd be no show. And negotiations went on with Gino Garibaldi acting as spokesperson for the Grapplers, the Garibaldi family. The wrestlers had aligned, and get this, Brian, with the Music Corporation of America, MCA, because the MCA had brokered a deal to resurrect television at Long Beach and Ocean Park arenas. And the wrestlers were then guaranteed $50 each for shows that were televised. On the other hand, Hugh Nichols paid a $48.50 dividend to be shared among all wrestlers on the card if the gate was under $1,000. The television contract for the Hollywood Legion Stadium still had 6 weeks to run, and Nichols was considering suspending shows until the contract expired. The press listed the grapplers who staged the walkout as Leone, Dave Levin, who was a big name, a former claimant to the world champion.
That's right.
Count Billy Varga, Chris Zaharias,
The biggest
Maurice LaChapelle, Danny Savage, Hal Keane, Jim Mitchell, the Black Panther, John Swinsky, and John Cretoria. But nevertheless, the point being, they ended up having to start, and remember we said $50. This was 1952. That's equivalent in today's money. I don't have it in front of me, but somewhere around $1,700-$1,800. You can look it up, Brian, if you want to get the exact number. But I assume that would have been in addition to their payoff on the gate. So we're talking about over a course of 2 or 3 times a week that some of these TV shows were being broadcast. That would have been significant money for the boys. So there was constant back and forth through 1952 and into 1953, arguing, but the guys were actually walking out over television and, in effect, rights fees. Imagine if they'd done that 60 and 70 years later, the figures we'd be talking about.
Yeah, the other day I was reading an article and it had some basketball player salaries, not even for like the best guy on the team. And I'm like, shit, you never really think about it. You're like, oh, this person makes millions of dollars, they're making a lot, but wrestlers still make so much less than any other athlete. At least baseball, basketball, football.
Yeah, I mean, there's I'm sure there's underpaid cricket players.
Right. And when you look at what the business is now and how for so many years guys were paid, they were paid off the house shows and then eventually paid royalties at the whim of Vince McMahon or the promoter from pay-per-view, unless you had it in your contract, what percentage, like Hulk Hogan. You was just getting whatever the promoter wanted to give you. That's all gone. House shows are gone. House show money is gone. And then pay-per-view money and royalties off that are pretty much gone. They make so much money off streaming. And then, of course, the media rights. The streaming of the big events and the archive and the media rights. But there's no cut. And you see how much money they're making while they're firing people left and right, whether it's wrestlers or people in the office. But wrestlers are still drastically underpaid. There was an article this week, and again, you don't know how true these things are, but just to use it as an example, if it's in a range, saying that WWE wants to cut Roman Reigns' $15 million salary. Who knows if it's true or not, but the point is, and Roman Reigns, isn't really there much, so maybe he isn't worth that much money right now. But a full-time wrestler who is a big star on their show and part of the package in the main event scene and sells a bunch of merch should be making $20 million a year. If you just look at the business WWE's doing and you look at any other sport, and again, the leverage they have, and baseball has a union. You know, basketball players, all these guys are looked after. Wrestlers are still just on their own, and it'll always be that way. You're not going to get too many situations where a Dave Levitt and a Baron Michelle Leone, the main event guys, are just going to walk out to make a point that's right and get what they deserve.
But this is the point that I've always made, you know, since we've been doing this show, is that 100 years ago, out of all professional athletes, wrestlers were probably the ones that were paid the most or the best, because the boxers still had umpteen people in their pockets. The Strangler Lewis, Jim Londos, the guys that were figured in at the top, you had to pony up half the fucking gate to make the deal with those guys, and they controlled the major promoters and etc. And then in the 50s, in the TV boom, the big stars were still making much more than the basketball players, football players, etc. And then by the 70s and 80s, here goes basketball and football and baseball and millions of dollars, and the boys are making less of the pie than ever before. And now it may be, like you said, it may be more, the amount that they're making may be more, but the percentage wise or adjusted for inflation or whatever of the overall company's revenue, it still ain't that much. So, you know, we got left behind in the evolution of the business. And what started it was all the boys getting during when things went slow in the 40s and then exploded with TV and everything. The boys that got over became the next generation of promoters, and they knew better than anybody how to fuck the boys. Well, and then there you go.
Another thing too, how many television stations actually paid the promoter for the wrestling show?
After the network days in the early 50s?
Yeah.
Almost nobody, except until Memphis started that, you know, probably, I don't know what WHBQ's deal with the Memphis promotion was in the 60s and early 70s, but I don't think there was anywhere else that they were paying for production or paying for the right to broadcast the show.
By that time, promoters were desperate. They wanted their TV on everywhere they could, as much as they could. So I wonder when the mindset changed. And of course, we don't know what Dave Levitt and Baron Michelle Leone and others were thinking. You know, but when did they realize finally we need TV?
Well, when they figured out how to use TV, then the boys stopped. At first, TV was causing people to stay home and hurt the gates, and the boys were making less money. That's why they were up in arms there. And back then, I think I've seen Fred Kohler may have had a $75,000 a year contract with the network, but in the early Fed, that'd be $1 million today to broadcast the show. But once they started figuring out how to use TV as an infomercial with a studio show and interviews selling the matches at the arena that you couldn't see on TV, then the boys all wanted to be on fucking TV because that was what you used to sell your match and draw more money at the houses. And that's how then the promoters, who were most of them were the ex-boys. Brian, you know this, you didn't get paid for TV. If you were a star on top of the territories, the amount that you got paid to do the actual TV show ranged from nothing to $60. Because the deal was that the promoters said, well, we're giving you all this airtime at no charge to you for promotion, so you can go out and sell tickets to your matches. And in Memphis TV, the job guys got $25. The guys on the regular roster got nothing. In Mid-South, at the time I was there, you got, goddamn, was it $40 or $60 for a TV taping, which basically covered your room at the Alamo Plaza in Shreveport and gas. Crockett was at $60. All those Crockett Promotions TV shows where it's the Midnight Express versus Garvin and Wyndham or Ric Flair versus fucking whoever, unless you were the advertised dark match in the Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium that night, they got a payoff, which was almost all the money because that was the match that was advertised. But even if you had a main event match on Mid-Atlantic television, you still got the $60. And so it was the antithesis of making money from television was in the 70s and 80s during the territory days when all the top guys did TV almost for free in order to be able to draw money at the houses. And now they just give the house. We don't give a shit about a house. Just put us on TV. Does it make any sense, Brian?
It makes sense.
It doesn't really make sense, though.
What doesn't make sense?
What I just said.
It makes sense that they all of a sudden, you realize the power of TV. We talked about girls
what
earlier.
I said
You want to get
makes
the girls
sense, but
into you got to be on TV.
Yes, but what I said makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that as years go by, every other athlete in every other sport would be compensated more and more while the wrestlers have been compensated less and less. But that's what had to the point where we were doing shit for free by the time 20 or 30 years ago rolled around. And now, guys.
That's why they hate Tony Khan. Because Tony Khan upends that system.
But the thing is, it's already been upended. It is upended really since the 90s that everybody started giving out guaranteed contracts, because on the flip side of things, if you were a top guy that drew a ton of money at that period of time, you could make a fortune, but you could easily, you could fall out of favor and be replaced if you didn't have a contract, but you always had somewhere to go if you could draw money to make money. But now you either get a big contract where almost no matter what you do, you're going to make the same amount of money. You can still be cut at any time, but you have to work much less for it. But does it remove? For me, it always removes some of your incentive. Now that's why they're wanting to give, you know what? I'm talking myself into it. That's why they're all concerned about giving a great performance now instead of drawing a lot of money, because they're going to get paid the same and they can't really notice when there's any difference in the gates because of what you did versus what somebody else did, because it's the company now. So instead of the motivation being, put me in a main event, I'm going to get the biggest check and I'm going to draw the biggest crowd to show everybody I'm the fucking best. It's put me in any match on a card and I just want to have a great performance. I
would just want to get that TV money.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Media rights money.
If they got paid for that 4-hour extravaganza they put on last Wednesday night, I think they ought to be giving out refunds. Gee, Manelli, Shelley, I can't wait till we go through the ratings for this, but one would have to think that this was the television equivalent of a goddamn bobsled run. Or maybe the ski jump on the Wide World of Sports, where they go from the thrill of victory to the agony of defeat. Top to bottom, and this thing got weirder as it went. Who are all these people?
Are you talking about a wrestling show? You haven't really...
Yes.
Who are all these people? That's what you're saying.
I'm talking about, well, it was just random people showed up. I mean, there's Claude. We haven't seen him in a while. Fyter Fest, the AEW television program from 4 hours and some. From Denver, Colorado at the Mission Ballroom. It looked like the fucking lobby of Mission Barbecue. This was one of the longest things that it just degenerated into madness. This had no connection to most of their television programming. They're just bringing that because they're going to Mexico. When are they going to Mexico?
Soon, I believe. They have what do they have? I was about to say When Worlds Collide, but that's WWE and AAA. No, they have Grand Slam, Mexico City.
Okay, well, is that going to be on pay-per-view? Because why did they bring the entire population of the Mexican promotions that the WWE doesn't own to all put them on this same television program is what I'm asking you. Why did it come up just now?
Them being there may not be the bigger issue. Them, until they lose the matches, seemingly overwhelming anyone on the AEW roster.
Kid, that's what I'm saying. They come in and kick the shit out of everybody and then go home. All right, anyway, we'll go from the top and we'll try to hit the high points because this was long, folks. Long and hard. So, Tony Schiavone introduced Will Osprey, and they showed video of Swerve and Osprey shoving and arguing and fighting each other in the back at a previous incident because they hate each other. Swerve and Paige hate each other, but Osprey and Swerve were fighting because Osprey loves Swerve, but he also sees that he and Paige have to work together so that the real enemy is Moxley and they can get rid of him. And I agree with you there. The real enemy of this company is Moxley, but so Osprey's thing is he wants Paige and Swerve to work together for one night and then kill each other. And they are reduced to having to make up angles between all their top baby faces because nobody even knows what the top heel is talking about. And as a matter of fact, Osprey even told Moxley here, piss off, you're the reason AEW sucks. And a lot of people, you could hear people in the crowd kind of gasp like he said that.
Yeah, that's an interesting. He stepped away from the mic as soon as he said it too. Like, oh shit, did I just say AEW sucks?
Yes, he did. He said he listed, as a matter of fact, the why AEW didn't suck. Is that the only reason that AEW sucks is you, Moxley. So it's completely his fault. And I gotta be honest, Osprey here was talking slower. He was talking calmer. He was articulating better. He wasn't going over the top with the screaming with the garbage disposal voice and everything, bruv. The material is rotten, whether it's his or somebody's telling him what to say with the whole thing of why all the baby faces have to have an issue again because nobody gives a shit about the heel. But the delivery was actually good here. The guy may be trainable, but then when they started chanting Swerve's house, he even slowed down and turned and got him to stop with that. And the fans understood him and reacted to it. And he wants a match with Swerve next week so that he and Swerve can fight. And he can show Swerve apparently that he should work together with him and Paige to overcome the Boar Horseman. And I thought, okay, he actually came off like a top guy here. I think they've done something. And then they played music. And out came Leo Rush and Action Andretti. And it's like if Kai and Tai had suddenly interrupted Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the fans were chanting, shut the fuck up. And, that's part of things that fans do these days. But in this case, there seemed to be a little extra genuineness behind it. Because Leo Rush starts talking and the fans whatted him to death. They don't care. Again, I think Leo Rush could be one of the hottest money-drawing managers in the last 30 years in the business. But as a wrestler, he's a fucking underneath guy. And he can do all the moves. But he's got an entertaining personality, and they need to do something else with him where he could contribute that at a main event level. This ain't it. And Andretti, I'd say he should have been a race car driver like his Uncle Mario. But Leo Rush in this promo challenges Osprey. Actually, he didn't. He alluded to it. He didn't actually come out and do it, and Osprey had to pick up on it and finish it up for time purposes. Oh, so you want me, bruv? And so Osprey said he was going to go put on his crime-fighting pants. And next week it's Osprey and Swerve, but tonight it's Osprey and Leo Rush. Brian explained to me why they couldn't leave well enough alone here to let this guy do the promo without sending job guys in to clutter the issue up.
You know, I've always liked Leo Rush, but I was a little shocked that he came out here with Action Andretti, who kind of looks like a shorter, smaller version of Will Ospreay with the haircut. But, you know, this is one of the problems with AEW. You know, you're trying to build people up, and then all of a sudden, and I get WWE used to kind of do this on their show, but it distracts from everything. But also, I guess you are looking at a 4-hour show. They need to build the things that'll be an hour 4. So in that way, I guess...
Okay, can they get some grown adults to fight the top babyface?
Who? If not who, Crew. I guess that's maybe what they were saying.
And so I wrote, he better win in 2 minutes. And of course, he's not going to, but we'll get there. But
nobody wins in 2 minutes. Nobody wins in 2 minutes.
Well, this is going to be a recurring theme in the program, and it's the reason why that stars don't get over in AEW. Because you can't send them out there to act like stars and then have them interact with people that are clearly not stars on an even keel. And this is what's going to go on all through the program. The first match was Dick the Boozer against Mark Briscoe, and Briscoe had apparently got choked out in the 6-man last week. Yeah, we remember that. So he vowed to show his 5-year-old son and his kids that he didn't quit when Moxley choked him out on Wednesday. So guess what Moxley did? He choked him out again on the next Wednesday. Not only did he get juice on Mark Briscoe, not only was Moxley's work as fake looking as ever, it's the fakest mainstream television pro wrestling work in the business. But they have their 15-minute match, and Moxley kicks out of Mark's dead brother's finish, the J Driller, immediately pops up and does some shit to him, gets him in the choke, lays him mobile for about 20 or 30 seconds, looked like he was humping him, and then the referee stopped it. And the crowd booed, not in the way that the heel won, but booed in the way of, are you fucking shitting me? So fuck Mark Briscoe's kids. What? Is it a wonder why all their baby faces are fucking impotent simpletons in the eyes of the fans, and the people just chant for the heels because they're the only cool ones?
You know, just when we thought maybe they were pushing Mark Briscoe a little better and using him better, and he certainly has kept the audience interested in him, I guess you could say.
They love him.
Better than he should, considering the way he's been booked. But, like you said, he lost the match the other day, lost the stretcher match, even though he reappeared during the Anarchy match at the pay-per-view. And here's Moxley beating him, and I hate Moxley's matches. He is so bad. If you actually watch what he does, just nothing looks good. And it looks lazy. But that's just me.
If you examined the amount of, if you gave Mark Briscoe the amount of wins that either Wheeler Useless or Danny Garcia have had on this television, imagine what you'd have. Every time he goes out, he gets over with the people and he performs at a high level. He works his ass off, but they push these simpletons, nevertheless. Did you like the match with Tony Storm and Mina Mellons against Julia Hart and Blue Sky?
You know, it was fine for what it was, I guess.
Mercedes at ringside eating a burnt steak.
On commentary, yes.
Well, the Uber driver, I hope she didn't tip him, because that thing it looked pretty dried out, like you'd have to eat it in the rain.
Okay.
And then after well, I'm just telling you, it didn't look very appetizing. And then after the match, the big angle was Tony Storm ate Mercedes' steak. I didn't even know she liked meat. And that was about that. Yeah, it was long. So then we get to the Hurt Syndicate section of the program. And first, MJF was in the back. And he was telling Osprey, hey, stay out of Swerve and Page's business. Let the animals eat each other. But Osprey was being noble and, he wants to do what's best for AEW. And MJF mentions Osprey's son. And Osprey snatches MJF up. And suddenly the Hurt Syndicate are all in there and they kind of intimidate Osprey into letting MJF go, and then MVP calmed it down and everything, but there's tension there. So then the Hurt Syndicate goes to the ring. Imagine that, just in time for the 9:00 hour. And the fans chanted for Bobby, 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 at Shelton, Shelton, and then MJF goes for his chant and they boo him. So now we got that going where the people are still kind of getting on MJF, but they like the other guys, and that makes it fun. But then MVP got Bobby Lashley to thumbs down the city of Denver to get boos, because Lashley is legitimately from Colorado. And again, MVP is the only person who has the idea of how to do the manager promo these days, where you go out and you put your guys over and talk about how great they are and nobody can beat them. And I don't know why it's so difficult for other people to grasp, but he's the only one doing it. And he said, if the best wrestle here, where are the teams? We got no competition, which is true. And then that was good. And then here comes MJF and the people are booing him. And he starts talking about wanting the world heavyweight title back. And the fans are chanting, shut the fuck up. And I'm thinking, they've got something with this group. And then MJF starts cutting a promo on Mystico. Mystico. On television in the United fucking States. So he did a good job, and he was healing by being a U.S. citizen, because most people around the world hate us these days. Plugged Happy Gilmore too. Talked about selling out Arena Mexico and went back to Mystico. He got heat with the promo. But Brian, can you possibly give me any idea why they would book one of their top fucking guys who is the antithesis in the ring of Mystico with fucking Mystico? Because either you have to beat Mystico, which it would seem to me to be counterproductive in his goddamn home country where he's the biggest star, or you've got to beat MJF, who is one of your only big stars, and nobody gives a fuck or knows who the fuck Mystico is on a mainstream basis in the United States of America. So MJF just got beat up by another one of these miscellaneous masked characters. So how is this going to end well?
I'm sure it'll be a great match.
I don't even think it'll be that.
I think it'll be a great match. I think MJF...
Can Mystico keep up with MJF in the ring? Seriously.
I know you hate all luchadors, but Mystico's very good.
I don't hate him, but...
Mystico's very good. He's one of their biggest stars, so they're putting...
And Lucha, is he going to be able to work with MJF without killing him?
I'm going to assume they're going to be fine. MJF has worked with various... I've seen MJF matches with Teddy Hart, so he can work with people who are trying to kill him. If you've never seen any of those matches, they're pretty brutal.
Jesus Christ.
But I'm sure, look, again, Mystico's a big star.
Teddy Hart has a better better grasp of the basics than... All right.
You're putting him in there with a main event guy over there. I mean, in that way, it's good. You're not putting him in there with Hechicero or something, which they did last year, right?
What my thought would be is put somebody that I don't mind sacrificing to Mystico
Well, that's a
in
different
the
thing.
ring with Mystico.
Well, that's the different thing. I think you're right about that. I actually look forward to that match. That would probably be the match I really want to see on that show. But who wins? And how? And if that's Arena Mexico, I want to see that. I want to see MJF working in Arena Mexico on TV. That'd be awesome. Against Mystico, the biggest star there.
Then he better beat him and cause a riot. Then I'll be all with it, all on it. But if he's going down there, he's going to get beat. What good does it do? AEW has no fucking over main event talent and no main event matches on horizon that anybody would give a shit about in great numbers.
Well, again, not to get too bogged down in the Mystico stuff, because I'm sure we'll review the match when it happens, but I was kind of thinking, this promo from MJF isn't hitting it for me, and I think part of the reason is he's doing it about Mystico. And again, I've already told you I want to see the match, but it went for a little bit, and I was like, this is like the first MJF hurt Syndicate segment that's not really hitting for me. And then, like, the surprise happened, and I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. Now I love it. This is ridiculous.
Well, and then as I've just mentioned, at least it's still the tag team champions and a former world champion. And even though MJF is talking about somebody that most of the people see in this television don't know or give a shit about, it's still stars. And then they play music. And I'm like, what the fuck? They had it here. It could have come to an end. Kevin Knight, Commander, and Hong Kong Phooey come out. And MVP called one of them Bruce Leroy. I don't know whether that was Spitball or who, but...
We called one of them Shonuff, and Spitball's costume is more Shonuff, but obviously he's also a white guy, so I don't know.
Well,
or white
Commander,
looking. I don't know what he is, to be honest with you.
Are you sure he's a guy?
I have no idea what he is. I don't know. I don't know anything. I know nothing.
I see nothing. So Commander spoke Spanish and a little bit of English, but then Spitball started speaking some kind of language that wasn't English, but it didn't sound like Spanish. And then he spoke English, and I wished he hadn't. He sounds like fucking Manny on Modern Family. But he actually, there he's standing there. Look at the state of him. You need binoculars to be able to see him in the goddamn building. He's so small. Commander, another miscellaneous guy wearing a mask, and poor Kevin Knight, who's gotten slotted in with these jobbers. And he called them a group of international killers. Not only did MVP horse laugh, but the people, the fans laughed. It was like Bambi announcing, "I'm vicious, get away."
And here's my friend Commander.
Yes, and here's my friend Commander, who will now speak in an unknown language. So then Kevin Knight finally challenged him. And that's again, what did I just say? You can't get stars over if they're constantly interacting with fucking underneath guys and job guys and mid-card guys as equals and as some threat or as someone deserving of their attention. And MVP said, no, you haven't earned it. So impress us and earn it. And the heels walked off and left them so they could have their 6-man tag. But then they have the 6-man tag, which is Kevin Knight, Commander, and Hong Kong Phooey against Rush, Frank Mortis, and Drilistico. And they go 15 minutes. And then for no reason, Commander did his tightrope walk and dove onto a guy outside the ring, just apropos of nothing. While the guys inside the ring waited for him to do that, and then Kevin Knight splashed one of the heels 1, 2, 3. And then the Hurt Syndicate comes back out and says, okay, we're going to wrestle you guys next week in a 6-man tag. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, these 3 children. Yes, if you're going to book it as a TV match where the 3 top heels just beat the shit out of these guys, fine. You don't need to advertise that ahead of time. You don't need to set it up. You don't need to create doubt in people's mind as to whether the baby faces might win, because they're not going to. And you don't want people to think that they could, because you don't want people to think that Kevin Knight, Commander, and Spitball can beat your three most over fucking heels. Jesus H. Christ. So then and I'm not blaming MVP, because God knows this was not their idea, but they are being paid to do a job, so I guess they have to go along with some things. He sends Shelton and Bobby to the ring, and suddenly Commander just gets out on the floor so that the two minute baby faces can fight the Hurt Syndicate. And they duck and dodge and drop kick him out of the ring. And then MJF gets in the ring and he has to stand there and wait like a stooge to be drop kicked by the fucking masked fellow. And then they all do a triple dive on the heels, and the heels are like, oh my God, they're off balance. And they're that works if it's in any way remotely a competitive situation. This is not. You're just devaluing your top talent by pretending it is. For the fans who like silly, bumpy movie wrestling, I'm sure they'll like the match. For trying to draw any money or get anybody established in proper positioning, this is garbage. That's why stars don't get over in AEW. They get under, they get devalued, and you never get a chance to see what they can do, because with the exception, I believe, of the Hurt Syndicate, nobody in AEW is ever as over 3 months after they arrive as they are the first day on the job. Can you argue with anything I just said there?
No, typically that's true. I can't think of another example of someone who, well, I mean, Punk, but that's been a while ago. Although his first night in was like, he was wild.
I mean, he was hard. He's about as over as he was going to get once he got there. And they managed to do a job on him too.
You looking forward to seeing Bobby sell for those kicks from Speedball Mike Bailey?
No, they've got to do something to calm that little shit down and goozle him into fucking compliance, because that could make them look ridiculous more than anything. They haven't really done anything to look completely ridiculous on this TV yet, and I think they're the only ones I can say that about.
They definitely have to do the spot where Commander runs across the ring on the top rope and jumps and does a flip onto like Bobby or I was going to say Stanley, Bobby or Shelton, and they just,
onto Bobby or Stan,
and they just catch him, and don't drop him. You know that'll happen. But big 6-man tag match. You can't find tag teams. The team of international killers, obviously, will be the ones to take it to the Hurt Syndicate.
Only if you're talking about Gates. If you're talking about box office proceeds, then maybe that's correct. But I tell you, Brian, to be honest with you, I don't see any way in the future that Hong Kong Phooey is going to make a dime unless he immediately has a brilliant inspiration for how to sell some type of line of children's clothing with his name and face on it, and he gets his own store on the internet and is powered by Shopify.
Oh,
I don't see any other way he can possibly make any money, because let's face it, he can't communicate. He opened his mouth for the first time on TV and people laughed at him. I mean, well, you know, that's not really good when you're not saying shit that's supposed to be funny. Now, if you're a stand-up comic, you might feed off of that type of thing. But Hong Kong Phooey ain't got a lot going for him, and this wrestling thing probably ain't going to last long. I think he needs a store powered by Shopify. You know what Shopify powers, don't you?
yes. I didn't know if you were really asking. Yes, they power.
Yes, that's a question.
They power our online t-shirt store, and of course, they power businesses for people all across the land, just like they can power the business of the listeners.
Yeah, a big pow, too. Pow! Right in a kisser, because they're the commerce platform behind 10% of all the e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel to brands just getting started, like you, the small person out there, the little person out there, the minute, insignificant individual like you listening to my voice right now that wants to make $1 million, but the only thing standing in your way is you don't know how to make a fucking $1 million. Well, don't worry about that, because Shopify does. They've got millions they've already made, and they can make millions more, and they'll give you some of it if people buy your merchandise. The way they can buy your merchandise is by you going to Shopify and getting them to help you from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style. Don't worry about working on coding and all that stuff, because they can do it. They've got templates. They've got websites. They've got web persons that just tie a web around you. And from inventory to payments to analytics, they'll take care of everything. They'll do the books. Don't dare question their bookkeeping. I'll tell you what, that's when they have to send George over. George has the eye patch and a fucking cauliflower ear. Don't question their bookkeeping.
There is no
but
George.
Spread
Question
your brand's
whatever
word.
you like. They are honest. They are honest brokers. They are there for you, to work with your business, build things up like sales. Shopify.
Yes. I'd suggest you ask other people questions, though, because they don't like that. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. The new customers, once you find them and you keep them, they can't get away from you. They're inextricably bound by Shopify and their super secret system.
No.
Which, of course, involves finding out the closest relatives of your new customers.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
And did I mention, Brian, that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world? Yes. Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it, and they can install that button. So when people hit that button, all around the world, it doesn't matter what they're hitting that button for, you're going to get a piece of it. It's all part of the plan. You're going to be one of the button people.
Well, no.
And
no.
Well, okay, well, you wear zippers at the meeting and see what happens then. But folks, if you want to be one of the button people with that iconic purple button, people press it, and that's what happens. Then right now, go to shopify.com/JCE. That's shopify.com/JCE. Sign up for the $1 a month trial period, where they can show you what they can do, and then you'll start selling today. And you'll sell and you'll sell and you'll sell like an auctioneer. You'll sell like you're going to the electric chair. You'll sell like they waltz you across Texas, and then you'll get your comeback to the locker room. And there you will find a pot of gold at the end of the urinal in the locker room. Shopify.com/JCE. Well, you know who else might need a new career pretty soon, Brian? The next person up on the parade of terror was Max Caster, who, what have they done to this guy? He's got a petition he's asking the referee to sign to recognize him as the greatest wrestler in the world, and he tried to get the fans to do his chant. Some of them kind of did it half-heartedly, like, okay, if we can move this thing along.
Yeah, they did it.
And he issues a 5-minute open challenge. And here comes Hobbs. And now Hobbs is coming through the crowd in street clothes. And he comes out, he beats Caster in less than a minute. Caster has done something to somebody. And they're making an example out of him. That's the only thing I can think. Well,
the only problem with that is that it seems that he is embracing it completely, almost as if it's his idea. He's really into it. He's getting the fans into it. I have to say, other than the fact that it seemed like he had potential for something other than this, I'm entertained by it. It's the best comedy thing, I think, in wrestling whenever it randomly appears on this show. But because it makes no sense. The more you think about it, you're like, what happened? The Acclaimed were one of the most over things in the whole company. They actually, I think, sold some merch.
Yeah.
They got Billy Gunn over. I mean, just everything. No, I mean, he was over, but they got him over in a different way to a different audience for different reasons. It was all working, and then they kind of just broke up. Like, it was just like, all right, I've had enough of you. Yeah. All right, I'll see you later. Like, what the fuck happened? And then they finally have the match, like, weeks later after Caster's been losing to everyone, and Bowens doesn't do anything. If you live in New York, you see Bowens in the PC Richard commercial still. As the smiling tech at the end, folding his arms like, hey, I sold you that 5-year fucking plan for that fucking stupid TV. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. That's why it's almost well, go ahead.
If this is Caster's idea, he just obviously doesn't have any idea, no pun intended, of what the fuck it's doing to it's making him look like he's a complete imbecile now. You couldn't put this guy in a main event or any kind of top match again.
Because how would that work otherwise? How are you going to, I mean, you've been a booker and a promoter. How are you pitching to someone, look, we have a gimmick for you. You're going to go out there and make a complete ass of yourself and then lose right away. And then you'll be off TV and then we'll do this again. And
well, yeah, I mean, there's been losing streaks like Barry Horowitz, right? But Barry, bless him, understood that his position was he's an underneath guy in the big company. And they gave him something to do, and he's okay because it's more than what he was doing. But
he was a job. But with all due respect to the talent and ability of Barry Horowitz, he was a job guy. Like when I was a kid watching WWF,
yeah.
I never saw him win anything until they gave him that push in '95.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is part of the losing streak thing is when he would, and he did it in Florida too, I believe. Is that, you know, when you do a losing streak with a guy like that, they are kind of an underneath guy, and that's where they're going to be, but you can get some interest in them as part of the package, but you don't.
Yeah.
It's not a main event spot. It's not anything approaching that.
Like, honestly, when I think losing streak, the first thing I think of, and I may be the only fan, I think of Mike Boyette in the UWF. Like, it was entertaining that he never won and they pointed it out, but like, it wasn't like, give him a push. You know, push him to the top. I want to see that guy against Dr. Death, and I want to see him beat Dr. Death.
Well, don't worry. He ain't going to beat anybody.
What do you think about Hobbs coming through the crowd? Unnecessary?
Why? Well, yes, because unless he's the only one doing it, he does it all the time. But why did he just do it now? And they played his music and his entrance video on the screen, but he came through the crowd. What?
For this. Not for someone he has a problem with. Not for like,
yeah. It's
someone
like,
he has to get his hands on. Yeah.
It was like, shit, they told me I was next segment. I'm still out here at the popcorn stand.
5-minute challenge. They really should have pushed it and like gone to like 4 minutes and 45 seconds. That really would have been funny.
That would have been pushing it all right. Anyway, so then the main event of the 2-hour Collision broadcast, Dynamite broadcast before Collision, was for the Intercontinental title. Kenny defending against Claudio Castagnoli, Brody King, and Masquerita Dorito.
Dorada.
Huh?
Dorada. Not Dorito, Dorada.
Masquerita Dorada.
I think so.
Whatever the fuck. The point again, a 4-way match involving people to do moves. And this went past 10 o'clock. Somehow they busted Brody King open. If fair is fair, he busted Josh Alexander open the other night. And then at 10:05, Kenny hit the one-winged fairy on Dorada, Tomato. And then there's Kenny standing there with his belt, and here comes Oblada out with his belt. And they have a face-off where they're holding up their belt. Everybody's got a belt, so who gives a shit, right? They hold their belts up at each other, they make mean faces, and then they started trading fake forearms. And finally, Oblada leveled Kenny with a gut shot because of his diverted colon. But then Kenny immediately popped up and tried to get the fairy on him, and Oblada slithered out. They ought to call him the Sloth. Think about this. He has all the characteristics of a sloth, the slow movement, the lazy demeanor.
The colors of the outfits.
Makes bumps like a sloth. So now we get to see that, apparently. Do you think Oblada's going to lay on his ass like he does every week for old Kenny, since they have such a storied history together? Is he actually going to try this time?
You would have to think this will be the best Okada match in AEW before it happens, just because if not now, when? If not him, who?
Him who, or who, when, how?
Yeah, I think it has.
Where?
I think this has to be where.
Oh.
This has to be where Tony Khan can go back at the end of the day and be honest with himself and say, yeah, I finally got my money's worth out of this guy.
But no, one match in a stadium that holds 80,000 and they going to have 20,000. He got his money's worth out of one match, but he's paid this guy millions to come over here and wear baggy clothing.
Well, his money. I'm not saying, money if we're running a business or someone else
It's
was.
not even his money. This millions of dollars this fucking Joker has cost. And he's done nothing. Nothing.
Who do you put over? Who do you put over?
It better be Kenny.
And does it have to be a title unifying bout?
Well, it would help because that way there'd be one less of these phony fucking belts floating around. But who'll notice one less? There's 20. But it would be a start. And the thing is, regardless of how I feel about either one, I don't think either one deserves to win. But Kenny at least seems like he tries. And more importantly, some fucking babyface in this company has to do something important sometime. So Kenny needs to beat this fucking lazy clown.
All right. Well, that was Dynamite, and that was sometime after 10 o'clock.
Well, then remember, we got it teased earlier on, Will Osprey and Leo Rush. Did you pay any attention to the entrance where Leo Rush came out in the inflatable red starfish jacket?
Yeah, I did, because in the past we've seen him and Action Andretti together wear these jackets, but this time Action Andretti was in street clothes and Leo Rush was the one dressed like whatever that is.
What is that? It looks like some kind of pointed starfish or conch shell. Anyway, they did plenty of flips. What? I'm telling you, put your ear up to his belly button. Maybe you could hear the ocean. They did the flips. And again, this guy, Leo Rush, is 140 pounds. He's 5'2". Osprey's the top guy. He just got beat by boring, nothing happening hangnail Adam Page. He ought to look good. Instead, they go out to have a good match. They went out to have a good match because Osprey doesn't know how to fucking get over and draw any money. And so this midget stays with him every step of the way. Osprey is doing AJ Styles' springboard forearm. He's doing his Styles Clash. For fuck's sake, he ought to get his kids' names tattooed on his side. So he hits the springboard forearm and immediately tries another move, and Leo Rush turned it into a DDT after getting hit with the phenomenal forearm. So he's still in the game. Leo Rush goes to the top, hits him with a frog splash, gets a 2 count. And then Action Andretti slides Leo Rush a chain into the ring, which he grabs, puts it around his fist, and draws back, but the referee takes it away, but doesn't call a disqualification. He caught him with the chain. He took the chain away from him. He didn't disqualify him. But now Leo Rush is distracted with the referee, so Osprey gets up and hits him with a Styles Clash, and Tony called it that, by the way. 1, 2, 3. So it was a 10-minute match, competitive. None of Osprey's shit could put the fucking midget away until a distraction. And he gets the win, and then the heel started beating him up. I swear to God, now these 2 6th graders are doing a Tennessee 2-step on the top of Osprey. And then They're taunting the crowd like, look at this piece of shit. I swear to fucking God, it's like George South kicking the shit out of the Horsemen. And then they play music. And here came Paige out to save the top babyface from two mid-card midgets. And then Paige stayed to do a promo. I know there's a lot to take in here, Brian. I'm going to let you talk in a second. But it just keeps coming. You can't stop. It's like I said the other day on the WWE, they'll bore you for an hour and a half. But here it's the unprofessionalism and the fuck-ups just keep coming. You can't keep track of it. Paige does the promo saying he's going to have Osprey's back. But I'm my own man. I don't need any help, especially from Swerve Strickland, because Swerve threatened the safety of my family. If we're going in story, you burned his fucking house down. So I think that's why another reason they ought to think about these stupid fucking things before they do them. Well, one of these guys might need to be a babyface again, you know, and then, yeah, he kind of burned his house down. The fuck? And he's never going to accept help from Swerve, but, and have you noticed this, Brian? Paige keeps saying, I'm going to win the men's world championship. Like he needs to differentiate. Number one. And number two, it sounds so bizarre for him to call the men's world champion, like the women's world championship is goddamn equivalent in anybody's mind, anywhere, for anything. That you need to call attention to. I'm going for one of the two big ones. No. You're going for the world title, you fucking idiot. The women's world title, you can call it that because it's secondary to what's supposed to be the main event position in the company. But Paige, I think, is one of these equality-minded folks. So he's got to, I'm going to win the men's world title. If he was going for the women's world title, I'd put more money on him.
Maybe he could unify the belts.
So then
the AEW unisex champion.
But then when he said that, then Moxley rolled into the ring. And the other members of the Boar Horsemen surrounded the ring. And so what were the fans chanting? Swerve's house. He wasn't even there. But Osprey runs out with two chairs and gives Paige one. And then everybody stands there looking at each other. And then Moxley rolled out and they all just walked off. That was a long bunch of shit right there. They managed to make Osprey look bad. Paige doesn't need any help in that regard. And they've stunk the joint out with a standoff that nobody gave a shit about. And the fans were chanting for the only person that wasn't a part of it. Your thoughts?
You know, Moxley's lucky he doesn't have to go up against Leo Rush. He really handled himself well here. He took Osprey to the limits. And Moxley just stood there for a long time. It was like, okay, what exactly is happening? Like, do something. Just do anything. You're supposed to be a badass. And then, you know, that was that. Again, this was, 2.5 hours into this night, this endless night of wrestling. But Adam Page and Moxley, you think they're going to do it for Adam Page? Does it look like it?
Well, I mean, my God, this shit has to end sometime, but nobody wants to see Page champion again. Osprey, when he came in, you could see clearly that just don't fuck this up. Just figure out a way for the trajectory to be him to be the world champion in about 6 months. And he's not even wrestling for it at the biggest show, the biggest show, whatever the fuck. So are they going to wait till they go to Wembley?
When's that?
Just more Moxley. That's September, isn't it?
Are they going to Wembley? They're going to
or not Wembley.
Arena.
They're going to London, not Wembley. I apologize.
I hope they don't wait till they go to Wembley. It may be a while.
Yeah, we'll don't hold your breath. But they're going to England in September. They can't go to Wembley anymore because they can't fill it up. But this prolongs this shit that nobody wants to see with Moxley and this whole cretinous band of fucking lunatics. Speaking of which, Brian, you may be more knowledgeable than I am about the current Lucha Libre scene in Mexico. Are Atlantis Jr. and Templario currently main event guys in Mexico?
I can't pretend to be too knowledgeable about the current Lucha scene. Atlantis Sr. was a major star. Atlantis.
Well,
And we used to call him just Atlantis, but yeah.
Yes, that's before there was a junior. Here's what I said earlier about MJF and Mystico. It applied here to FTR versus Atlantis Jr. and Templario. You're going to shit the bed in some kind of way. If you had this match in Mexico at a big event in an arena for the live crowd there, it would have been wonderful. Could have had the same exact match and then done the same finish, and FTR fuck them just barely in the end, or FTR could have put them over. It'd been wonderful for the Mexican audience. But they're showing this on American television. When you have two guys that the majority of the viewing public have never seen or heard of and don't give a shit about because they've never seen or heard of them, and they come in and kick the teetotal shit out of FTR, of former tag team champions, one of your established tag teams, and lose only on a fuck finish after just almost beaten a dozen times, foiling their finish. You don't put this on American television because that's not no. If they're going to Mexico, they have that match in Mexico. The Lucha guys look like $1 million. It doesn't matter. But the American television is not promoting the event in Mexico. And if it's going to be a pay-per-view, then you got serious problems anyway, because you try to sell it FTR versus these two jokers or anybody else. It doesn't make sense. They are promoting the Lucha guys as being competitive with their main event talent that they feature here every week and regularly on all the events. And we're going to see these guys barely every once in a while. And they ain't going to get over when we do. But as I mentioned, if you take MJF to the Grand Slam in Mexico and he beats Mystico, you run the risk of pissing off the Mexican fans. But if it's not going to be shown in America, then yeah, beat MJF. Just don't mention it on fucking television. And then everybody's happy. But I don't know why they're promoting the Mexican wrestlers on their TV as being competitive with their real full-time talent, when it ain't going to help the gate in Mexico, because they ain't watching TBS in fucking Mexico City, are they?
I don't know.
What's going on here?
I can't speak to what they get in the hotels there. Again, they get a lot of tourists that go to Arena Mexico. What's going on here? I don't know. I think FTR have lost a lot of luster. It's not just that all of a sudden they're walking out there in all gray or silver, whatever it is, no color. But just, I don't know. Hasn't really clicked yet with Stokely. And
because he's got nothing to do. What's he doing? What's he saying? What's he done? What's he been responsible for? But they get, even still, again, two teams, complete antithesis of each other, what they do in the ring. And they make it competitive so FTR looks weaker. At one point, again, the guy grabbed Cash in a right-armed headlock, and the next spot he was supposed to shoot the guy off and do something, and you can see Cash going, how the fuck do I shoot him off out of this? And he just shoved him, and the guy ran to the ropes. But they kicked the shit out of him. Well, it's what happened. Just shove him. I don't know, your body don't go, after 20 years of wrestling training, your body don't go the other way. I wouldn't be able to, I couldn't imagine how to. Anyway, They kicked the shit out of him. They almost beat him numerous times. They foiled the Shatter Machine, and then Dax tripped a guy on a suplex for a fuck finish in 15 minutes. This is why stars don't get over in AEW. And then Stokely did a promo, which wasn't necessarily that particularly inflammatory. And then Dax got the microphone and the fans started booing him. So for real, he just, fuck it, never mind. You don't get to hear me. And he gave the microphone back and they left. Did you like the 6-man tag, Brian?
I don't remember who was in it.
Well, it was the Outriggers and Bandito versus Felcher, Take a Shit, and Chia.
This is around the time I kind of said, I've had enough. It's no longer Dynamite. I don't feel like I have an obligation to watch.
Oh, no, it kept getting better.
Oh, no, I did see. Actually, you know what? I did see this. I'm looking here actually at the ratings. I did see this because I saw the segment after this.
Well, first of all, you've got to admire them for gearing it down to where it was only a 6-man tag. You don't want too many people in the ring at once. And here is Kyle Felcher and Take a Shit, or then the top heel stable, the Don Fallis family. And they just pair them up with Chia for no reason. The Outriggers were wearing lucha masks, so they were Los Outriggers because they were Bandito's partner. And they went another 15 minutes and did a bunch of fine moves. And then Take a Shit and Kyle double brainbustered the Outriggers 1, 2, 3. But they rush through the matches like they've only got 3 minutes, but then they go for 15. So you get a little bit of both. But and then you said the segment afterwards. Are you talking about Megan Brain and Penelope Pitstop?
I saw this. I did see this segment.
So they go to the back and they got a camera close up on the both of them while they're doing a promo. And Penelope has that monotone delivery. She's memorized it, but she doesn't really have enough personality to put any excitement in it. And then the camera widens out and pans down because she's talking to Anna Jay while looking in the camera. Anna Jay, you should have knelt down. And then they just stop talking and the camera pans down and Anna Jay is on her knees. They got her by the hair in front of them. And they pick her up and they carry her in the arena. And they are preparing to throw her off the stage. When suddenly music plays. And here comes Ty Mello Conti with a stick. And suddenly, by the time she comes out on the stage, there's like a dozen security guards getting in between everybody and pulling everybody apart so they can just yell at each other. And I was going to say, I believe that Ty Mello Conti has changed her look, but I can't say for sure, Brian, because I can't remember what she used to look like. Did she look like that or is she different?
Her hair may be darker. She came out and immediately started making faces. Megan Payne, which kind of made me laugh. But I believe she's a legitimate, and I could be wrong, I think she's like a legitimate black belt or something, which they obviously didn't really point out here because, again, Megan Payne's gigantic. She saved Anna Jay.
Another one of the shooters that couldn't get the picture along with Marina Schaefer and the others.
Well, remember, her and Anna Jay go back in AEW. They were like always together as a team. And then she left, had the baby. She's been gone a while. So she came back to save Anna Jay. This is in the middle of Collision, not even Dynamite Collision. Anna Jay didn't know her best friend was there with a stick. They queued up her music and everything.
Hey, I can understand her not knowing her best friend was there, but not knowing she had a stick.
Not knowing she's there with the stick? Come on.
Stick. You should have seen where she put the carrot.
Years ago when I was in summer camp, there was this bus driver named Jimmy, and he was kind of mean sometimes to the kids until he realized he actually really was a good-hearted man. But he had a stick, and he would always threaten us with the stick. Like, I'll get the stick. And then someone said, where'd you get that stick? He said, I invented this stick. Where'd you think I got it? Home Depot? No, I invented the stick.
Noted stick inventor.
Yeah. But yeah, no one knew Tana, what's her name?
Ty.
No one knew Ty Mello. She's not Conti. She's Mello. No one knew she was there.
She's mellow. She's laid back. Ty laid back. That'd be a better name.
No, but this was a captivating segment for me as a fan of really good looking women who wrestle really badly. I thought this was just like a great segment, like an all-time great segment.
Well, speaking of, I was going to say good looking people who wrestle poorly, but I can't really say he's good looking. He dresses nice. Ricochet. Did you see he came out to do color on the next match and he's all duded up there? Same thing. He told his wife to go to Cox's and get him a seersucker suit, but she got mixed up and went to Sears instead.
All right, let's
how'd he became?
Let's stay on target.
He sat down at color, and I'm writing down what the next match is: a Sammy Guevara versus Lee Johnson with his manager Blake Christian. Oh wait, no, here comes AR Fox. It's a three-way. No, wait, for the Ring of Honor TV title. Here came Christian Cage, Nick Plain, and Nick Plain's mom. So it was a four-way for the Ring of Honor TV title with Sammy versus Lee versus AR versus Nick. And Nick, of course, being the champion. He's got that belt. Should they call it the Twink title? Did you see this array of
Well, listen, I don't know.
cute, young-looking, small people?
I think if there was a Twink division, I think it's more for people like Adam Cole's size, I guess. Maybe Orange Cassidy. Sammy's a little
Sabian.
bigger. I don't know. He has kind of the Colin Thompson look. I don't know what division that goes in. AR Fox just looks like a friendly Subway performer who is down and out on his luck. Could use a quarter.
Somebody stole his guitar when he turned his back. Boy, he used to have such fun times down in the subway with his little dog Peaches. All righty. I don't know who won that match. Do you?
No, I told you I was kind of out on this show after.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you see the debut of the Toxic Spider Tekla?
I have to go back and watch this because I did want.
But wait, now I've seen it written now. I was hearing Tekla. It's Thekla. Thekla is what her name is. Thekla. Thekla.
That's how you pronounce it, or that's how you spell it?
Well, why would there be any difference?
Well, sometimes there's a silent letter.
Why would she put an H in there if it's Tekla?
Well,
it's not.
She didn't put it in there, unless she.
Well, she made it up, didn't she?
I don't know. Is it a real name? Is there anyone over there in Austria?
Well, who's fucking named Thekla?
I don't know. I don't hang out in fucking Vienna.
And they don't spell it Thesla, do they?
I don't know.
His name was Tesla. And here's another thing. Does the estate of Nikola Tesla get any kind of goddamn cut from the Elon Musk's fucking, there's an intellectual property problem. I think we need to call Stephen P. New and Andre the Giant.
Well, is there an estate?
Well, there has to be an estate. He's dead.
Did he have a family?
Well, he had to have a family. He had a penis.
That's not exactly how that works. You have to actually have a family.
Well,
I don't know if he did.
Well, that's how else you going to get one.
I'm going to look it up. And by the way, there's also a company called Nikola. But let's.
But then they got to worry about baby doll.
Nikola Tesla. He significant. Doesn't say anything here about wife. Let me scroll down Wikipedia for personal.
He was married to his work.
It's all right. One shock too many. On religion, on society, personal life and character. He was a lifelong bachelor.
Uh-huh.
He worked at the Regal Beagle. It says here. No, so no family, so no estate, so there's no one to leave anything to.
What about Liberace? Do you have any kids? He was a lifelong confirmed bachelor. Well, nevertheless, you know who doesn't have anything in common with Liberace?
Who's that?
Tekla.
She wasn't
She
a
didn't play the
virtuoso?
piano. Lady Frost was the opponent. And Tekla came out kind of dressed like Bam Bam Bigelow, an animal, if they had a kid. And I need to see more here because my first opinion was Lady Frost was trying and she might be okay as a worker. But you can tell Tekla's got the personality and she's green. And she's got to be, I noted, got to be awkward to work with, but the style is different. She's got a lot of oomph. This didn't go long. She got some heat, you know, a little comeback, got her fucking hold, whatever the hold was called, the submission, and won the match. And then got some more heat and got her hold back on. And if anybody wants to go back now that I'm going to say this, because if you didn't, the only reason I knew this happened is because I heard the crowd pop. But the camera is on the ring where old Tekla has the hold on Lady Frost and the people are going, oh, and suddenly you hear, yay, cheering like somebody's coming to make the save. And then you hear the crowd go, yeah, ooh, like, oh shit, and kind of some giggling. And that's the sound you hear when somebody busts their ass or when somebody runs down and slides under the ring or whatever. And I swear to God, within 3 seconds, Queen Aminata, Queen Waiata, came into the ring barefoot, holding one high heel in her hand to chase the heel off. I guarantee you, she tripped on the entrance ramp and busted her ass, and the people popped for it. But she got lucky you didn't see it on camera.
Well, where else would the camera crew miss some action happening than AEW? It happens all the time.
Well, that's true, yes. But so she's interesting, old Tekla. As I said, this was short. This was the way to debut somebody. Of all the people that have debuted, why they decided to actually do it right for her, I don't know. But we'll see what happens. The style is going to be, you're going to have to be a pretty decent worker to be able to work with her and it not look hokey. But if they can find any of those, she might get over because she's different.
If Paul Heyman was booking ECW, he would have Queen Aminata start coming out with her shoe in the air, and then he would just have fans start throwing shoes in the ring.
Well, anyway, are you ready for the main event?
Oh, that wasn't the main event?
No. The main, and by the way, next week, folks, is going to be 4 hours too, because they're run off a Saturday again because of all the WWE programming taking up their audience.
Is this revenge for SmackDown going to stay into 3 hours? Now they're going to have 4 hours?
I think so. But the main event was an 8-man tag team match. Josh Alexander, Lance Archer, Rocky Romero, and Trent against Danny Garcia, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roddy Strong. And they started this at 10 minutes to midnight, and I swear to God, they overran this son of a bitch. 4 hours. It wasn't enough. They had to go an extra 5 or 6 minutes. I gave up at that point. I said, well, fuck it. Fyter Fest. Now, next week is summer break or summer.
Yeah, what was
no, they
week?
had Beach Blast. Then they had Fyter Fest. Now they've got summer. So it's not Summer Blast. That was mine.
It was Beach Break. They can't use Beach Blast. That's been used before.
Well, no, I'm saying it was Beach Break, then Fyter Fest, and it's not Summer Blast because I said that was mine. It's Summer something next week. If you just name every show, then that's the same thing as not naming any of them because it doesn't make any difference anymore. It's just people can't keep, you build to your major events, but you can't have 52 major events a year.
You also can't have Summer Blockbuster on June 11th.
Well, I tell you, there was an ad, a wrestling ad for the Louisville Gardens card on January 4th, 1979. The main event was Jerry Lawler and Austin Idol, and it was billed as the grudge match of the year. Year was 4 days old at the time. So it had very fucking low bar to clear there. But I'm saying, any closing thoughts on this television program? Because it's just, they're trying to do so much, they can't do anything. And nobody can keep track of all these fucking miscellaneous masked people. And they get the fans interested in some of their stars, and then they interact them with the Lollipop Guild. And it's handicapping everybody.
Again, seeing it all in a 4-hour spurt and not pay-per-view quality. This is just week-to-week rando show quality. You know, you're getting a lot of just people interacting with other people for no reason. When I say interacting, it's not just like a match and one person goes over. All of a sudden there's a promo, you know, like the thing with Leo Rush earlier with Osprey. I like Leo Rush. And that led to something in hour 3 of the show, or hour 2.
No, it was 3.
There was a lot here. There was just so much. It was too much.
But that's the thing. You could like Leo Rush if he was applied properly, but there's no way that he should be going toe to toe in a wrestling match with the guy that should be their top babyface that has just been beaten and diminished previously. You know,
is there anybody that Will Ospreay can beat decisively quickly?
No, because he won't, because he thinks that having a good match is more important. That's why I worry about anybody that starts out in this system, because they are not going to be taught anything about pro wrestling in terms of booking, matchmaking, working programs, drawing money, getting over as stars. They're going to be taught constantly, have the best match you can have with every fucking idiot that we put you in the ring with. And that's why nothing happens with anybody. They all just become part of the scenery. Brian, you know what else becomes part of the scenery, don't you?
No, I don't. No.
You don't have any idea where. Don't you realize, Brian, that these new Raycon everyday wireless earbuds are so small that once you put them in your ear, that just becomes part of your head and nobody even notices you're wearing them?
Well, that is one of the great things about Raycon's earbuds, is the fact that you can wear them and they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Not obvious.
Well, they're not garish. They have a variety of vibrant colors.
Yes.
But they're not garish. They're not like these big, giant headphones that some people wear that you can see a mile away. They're small and they go in your ears, and they're in a variety of vibrant colors. But more importantly, they sound great while they're less filling. Why, you can get 3 or 4 sets of earbuds in the average ear, because these things are so small.
Well, no, let's, again.
And then you could, if you had them all on the same channel, it would sound like a symphony orchestra.
Let's stop right now. You get one in each ear, and of course, that's the way it works. That's the way ears work. And you listen to the great music, whatever.
God intended for your ears to be people only get 2 to a customer, and if you're going to stick something in them, you only get 1 shot at it. Well, I'll tell you what, that's all you need. One at a time.
One needed, required, demanded.
Are you saying the earbuds are going to run a train on your head? I'm saying you get a pair, and you're in a monogamistic relationship with your one pair of earbuds, where they're the only earbuds that you allow to penetrate your head.
That's right.
And then you can listen to anything, because hey, these Raycon everyday earbuds, they like to play around and experiment. You could listen to music. You could listen to podcasts. You can listen to phone calls. You can listen to saucy talk from the BBC.
Saucy talk?
Well, you can listen to saucy talk. Oh, they're quite risque over there.
From the BBC. Hold on. It's not even an American show. It's a BBC show?
Well, that's why they're risque and saucy rather than downright vulgar, because they've got the good old-fashioned British pride to them. But I'll tell you what, these Raycons, here's another thing. You can listen to anything, but the quick charge function yields just 90 minutes of battery for 10 minutes of charging. That's amazing. Or It's summertime. There's more time to spend outside, be out and about, enjoying the moments from sun up to sundown. But then the summer thunderstorms come along. One lightning strike to your head will charge the everyday Raycon wireless earbuds for 3 hours and 47 minutes.
First of all, let's hope you don't get hit by lightning.
You're not going to be there to hear it.
Exactly.
But it'll charge them up, boy.
It won't charge them. It will fry them just as it fries you. Don't try to get hit by lightning.
Don't be fried. Don't be fried.
Stay indoors when a thunderstorm comes. And, of course, don't go out there with your umbrella or anything else.
Well, that's why they make these out of plastic instead of metal, because then it'd be like the Frankenstein monster with bolts in your neck, where the lightning would just bam, bam. But
again, like you said earlier, they are comfortable and they
smoke good.
Fit safely inside your ear.
Safely stay in the house in bad weather.
Raycon.
Here's another thing. Don't be wearing these things and get up in the middle of the night and go to get a drink of water, because not only the toilet lid might fall on your head, but also you can't submerge these things now.
Yeah, again, I don't know who's dealing with this problem. Let's deal with reality. And of course, a great reality, Jim, is a great deal. And we can get the listeners a great deal. So many listeners have done this already. A great deal on a new pair of Raycon.
Do more of it. And not only can you get a great deal, but you can get a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy. If you don't love your Raycons for any reason, then you can return them, no questions asked. Well, you're not allowed to ask any questions, but they're going to grill you pretty good over what's going on. They want to know. They want some positive feedback, and they will make you prove whatever your problem is to make sure you're not misrepresenting everything. But nevertheless, 30-day happiness guarantee return policy and 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday earbuds if you right now immediately go to buyraycon, BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com/JCE. You're going to get 15% off the everyday earbuds only by going to buyraycon.com/JCE. Again, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, telling you just what a fool you've been. All on the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds this summer when you're out and about. Watch the lightning, sidestep the thunder, and listen.
Watch the lightning.
Listen to the everyday earbuds.
Watch the lightning.
Watch the lightning. Drop down, sidestep the thunder. Get it again. Buyraycon.com/JCE.
All right. Our friends at Raycon, we love them. You'll love them too.
Speaking of friends, you have some over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network that occasionally do podcasts that the people like to listen to.
Another fine week of programming. ArcadianVanguard.com for some t-shirts from the drive-thru and everywhere else. And of course, you can get information about our shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, Facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Want to make mention of the wrestling news each and every day. Get your wrestling news for free. Start your day with the free Wrestling Morning Newscast from the Wrestling News, to WrestlingNews.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Want to make mention of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. The latest episode, they asked ChatGPT, that's AI, to book an NWA Supercard for June 8th, 1985 at the Philadelphia Civic Center, and then asked ChatGPT to book a rival WWF Supercard in the same city on the same night. Find out what happened. McAdamPod.com, or look for Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam wherever you find your favorite podcast. And
Did either one of the rings get set on fire?
It does not say anything about that here. But of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the mothership! All right, well, the legal stuff is starting to change in tone, so hopefully some time to finish some stuff up. But go through the archive, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Well, where do we find our favorite AEW ratings for this 4-hour extravaganza that seemed like it would never end? Did the people feel the same way, and were they jumping off the ship regularly as it approached the fucking dock?
Well, we have a bunch of quarter hours because of the
16 quarters plus an overrun, right?
Well, let's do Dynamite's overall number first. According to WrestleNomics, this is AEW Dynamite, June 4th, 2025, Wednesday night, 8 to 10:06 p.m. On average, 655,000 viewers.
So they got about 20,000 more than last week, but they're still calling Collision or Dynamite 8 o'clock to 10:06, even though it was just the same show. Didn't go off the air and come back on. They were just in the middle of the shit.
Well, AEW Collision on TBS, June 4th, 2025, 10:06 to 12:06. On average, watched by 380,000 viewers.
Okay. So 655 from 8 to 10:06, 10:06 to 12:00 whatever was 380,000. If they'd have gone from midnight to 2 a.m., I believe that they would have owed us viewers.
Well, let's actually find out a little bit more about these viewers. We have the quarter-hour breakdowns. Again, these were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m., the Tony Storm backstage promo, the Will Osprey confrontation with Crew after his live promo, Mark Briscoe's backstage promo, and the start of Brisco versus John Moxley, 803,000 viewers.
Oh boy. Okay. So they are back up to getting a halfway sizable lead in. And they're going to squander that by the course of this, by the evidence of this average number. They're going to lose precipitously viewers by the end of the show. But that was what, maybe 100,000 more than they started with last week.
Yeah, well up over the 90-day trend. Quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m., continuation of Brisco versus Moxley with picture-in-picture, and a Mystico video, 669,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Last week, they kept their audience. It even went up and down a little bit in the course of the program instead of steadily downward because they started with smaller numbers. So they started with more of their base audience. This week, they're back to normal where they start with a big number. And I think last week, didn't we say they lost only 40 or 50,000 people in the first 15 minutes? This was 134,000. So we're back to somewhat normal.
Well, we go now to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. An ad break. Mina Shirakawa and Tony Storm versus Julia Hart and Sky Blue with picture-in-picture, 604,000 viewers.
All right, they're going to have to come up by the end of somewhere by the end of the show, or elsewise I don't know how they're going to make their average. But we shall see.
We go now to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of Mina and Tony, that's her name, versus Julia and Sky.
That's her name.
And the post-match with Mercedes Moné, the publisher of Monet Mag. The Will Osprey MJF Hurt Syndicate backstage angle, an ad break, and the start of MVP's live promo. 726,000 viewers.
Good Lord. Well, I said they needed to go up, but I didn't know they were going to do that. So how would you even... That's 122,000 people. How would that many people suddenly find out, oh shit, Hurt Syndicate, MJF, we got to get over there? That's a lot of fucking people. And the last 15 minutes of the first quarter, so it's not like anybody's show they were watching ended. They were just waiting to see these guys show up.
I don't know. But that continues into the big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The MJF Hurt Syndicate, Commander, Kevin Knight, Mike Bailey, live angle, and Jet and Speed. Jet, who's Jet? Oh, that's Kevin Knight, I guess. Jet and Speed and Commander versus La Facción Ingobernales, or something like that, with picture-in-picture. 670,000 viewers.
Yeah, once all the other stuff started cluttering it up, I think people gave up.
Well, we go now to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The continuation of Jet and Speed and Commander versus La Facción Ingobernales in Gober. So we're in Gobernale. I'm trying to actually pronounce this fucking thing.
La Fuckers and Goobers.
The post-match with the Hurt Syndicate, MJF, and then the Paragon Daniel Garcia backstage angle, followed by an ad break. 578,000 viewers.
Oh, wait, what? That's quarter 6, 578.
Yes.
So they went from 726 in quarter 4 to 670 in quarter 5 to 578 in quarter 6. So now they've lost 225,000 from the start of the program, and they lost 148,000 in 30 minutes. Okay.
Well, to be fair, too, I heard they did Infinity on Max. So let's go.
I heard it was actually Infinity +3 because they had 3 visitors from fucking Bolivia come in.
We now go. They must have been visiting Tony. We now go to quarter 7. Let's see if we can get the marching powder to continue on here with this. 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The Patriarchy's backstage angle, the Max Caster live promo, and then Powerhouse Hobbs versus Max Caster, and then an ad break. 564,000 viewers.
Ouch. Okay, there went another 14,000, and we're down now 239 from the start.
Well, now we go to, what is this, quarter 8? The big end of the show, usually. 9:45 to 10 p.m. I'm not even going to say overrun because it just keeps going. Kenny Omega versus Claudio Castagnoli versus Brody King versus Mascara Dorada with picture-in-picture. 623,000 viewers.
Boy, that's a gift. Gaining 59,000 at that particular point in the program.
Well, we now
now, like I said, there is no overrun because it's the first
right.
quarter of the next program.
That's right. Exactly. We go now to quarter 9, AEW Collision, 10 to 10:15 p.m., which actually Collision didn't start until like 10:06. Continuation of Omega versus Claudio versus Brody versus Dorada. The post-match with Okada. A recap, Ricochet backstage promo, and the start of Will Osprey versus Lio Rush. 619,000 viewers.
Very comparable to quarter 8 on the previous program. So they held that there. And for them to start here and end up with their average of 380,000, we're headed south.
When we go to quarter 10, 10:15 to 10:30 p.m., the continuation of Osprey versus Leo with picture-in-picture, the post-match with Action Andretti and Adam Page, and then the Death Riders have a confrontation with Osprey, and then more Adam Page. 531,000 viewers.
Ouch. There went another 88,000, and here we go.
Well, we now go to quarter 11, 10:30 to 10:45 p.m., the Don Callis family backstage promo, and the start of Atlantis Jr. and Templario versus FTR with picture-in-picture. 449,000 viewers.
Ouch. There went, Jesus, that's 82,000 more.
Well, that action continues into, what is this now? Quarter 12, 11 to 11:15 p.m.
No,
I'm wrong there. Where are
that'd
we?
be 10:45 to 11.
Quarter 12, 10:45.
Quarter 12.
Is that what it is? It's quarter 12, right?
Well, it's quarter 12, but it'd be quarter 4 in the new program.
Yeah, okay, it's quarter 12.
Yes.
Atlantis Jr. and Templario versus FTR continued. The post-match with Stokely Hathaway. An ad break. Hechicero and the Don Callis family versus Bandito and the Outrunners. 418,000 thousand viewers.
Yeah, now we're at 11 o'clock and they're like, fuck this. We got to get out of here.
We go to quarter 13, 11 to 11:15 p.m. The continuation of Hechicero and the Callis family versus Bandito and the Outrunners with picture-in-picture. Megan Bain and Penelope Ford's confrontation with Anna Jay and Ty Conti. 367,000 viewers.
Good Lord. And we've still got the 3/4 and an overrun to go. They're going to get down below 2, aren't they?
Where are we now? What number is this?
This is quarter 6 of the second show or quarter 14 of the combined effort.
11:15 to 11:30 p.m. An ad break. Anthony Bowens and Billy Gunn backstage promo. And the start of Nick Wayne versus AR Fox versus Sammy Guevara versus Lee Johnson with picture-in-picture. 312,000 viewers.
And we got 30 minutes to go. 36, 11:30 to 12:06.
Oh, come on. There's main eventers to come. We go now to, where are we? 11:30 to 11:45. Nick Wayne versus, that match continued. The post-match with the Patriarchy and Ricochet. Lady Frost versus Tekla. And the post-match with Queen Aminata, followed by an ad break. 259,000 viewers.
Oh, geez. I didn't think they'd get that low for the fucking end, but okay. 259.
And for the night, that's that's not the low point. Technically, the last quarter would be, I was going to say in the key demo, 97,000. But we go now to 11:45 to 12 p.m. The Queen Aminata backstage promo and the start of Daniel Garcia and Paragon versus the Don Callis family with picture-in-picture. 255,000 viewers. 6-minute overrun. 12 to 12:06 a.m. Continuation of the aforementioned match. 243,000. 96,000 key demo.
I mean, obviously, prime time is 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. After 11 o'clock, the conventional and true wisdom in television is you're fighting sleep. So one would expect a drop, but the second show started at 619,000, and at 11 o'clock was at 367,000. So between 11 and 12, they lost 242,000 viewers. Between 11 and midnight, they only lost 124,000. So it was just people seeing an endless parade of multiple man matches with people that they didn't care about or hadn't ever heard of before. And it's just meaningless sound and motion at that point.
All right. Well, we've had a lot of action. We've covered the legal beat. We've covered wrestling on TV. We've covered overruns and TV history. And
just like Mercedes Moon, you can't beat our meat.
This is your show.
Well, we're coming back on the drive-through to talk about the big Money in the Bank situation and what goes on there, as well as all of the other news and hopefully some history and things of that nature. And we'll be bringing that to the people in just a very few days so they can all stand by with bated breath. And believe me, we've been wondering what that smell was. Brian, any final comments?
It's time for dinner. Let's go.
In that case, everyone is free to go, and we'll see you back here next time. Thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.